Hello, I'm Mayor Clark Hill, and I appreciate the opportunity to welcome everyone tonight. This is one of my favorite times in each election cycle, where we're given the opportunity to come together for debates and political forums to really find out what our candidates are about and how they're going to help us solve the problems that face our community and every other community. There's no question that Jackson County's GOP's sponsorship of this tonight is an important thing for not only commerce but for our area of the district. We face so many different issues than other parts of our district will because we're facing unprecedented growth here. It's a blessing. Jackson County has seen a tremendous amount of growth and commerce just in the last year or so. We've seen the largest single foreign investment in our city, in our state's history. SK Batteries just announced a second expansion, bringing their total investment to almost $1.7 billion. And we're so grateful for that. But with that comes challenges. Many other people are looking to locate here to place supplier businesses. That puts pressure on our housing market, our rural health care system. Our hospital is 60 years old. The last 10 or 15 years we've struggled to keep the doors open, and that's going to become more of an issue for us. Transportation, infrastructure, I could go on and on. But there's no question we face challenges, and we are going to need the help of these candidates tonight to help us and be our partner. We're not looking for handouts. We're just looking for partnerships to solve these problems. Second thing I want to mention is COVID. That's the elephant in the room. It's certainly affected me as a physician, but it's affected my community because of its effect on small businesses. I think if you look around and don't think that this thing has affected every community in this district, you're mistaken. Small businesses are the heart and soul of our city and every city in the district, and we have to do everything that we can to protect them through policy making. So I'm glad people are participating in a forum. I'm glad that citizens are interested. It's through citizen engagement that we solve problems, and that's where public policy begins. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the bright days ahead of us. Thank you.
Live from the Commerce Civic Center, it's time to debate. This is the State Senate District 50 Republican debate tonight. This is a runoff election between Stacey Hall and Bo Hatchett. Early voting starts Monday, and Election Day is August 11th. We want to thank our sponsor, Jackson County Republican Party. This is a debate. You will see the candidates have many opportunities on subject matter to discuss them back and forth. And the goal tonight is for you, the voters, to see your candidates and get a feel for, hey, who do I want to vote for, right? There you go. We're going to start with opening statements, 1 minute opening statements. Mr. Hatchett, you have 1 minute to open.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Jackson County GOP and the Commerce for hosting this debate. My name is Bo Hatchett. I'm a Christian conservative Republican. I'm an attorney and small business owner. I've got some unique ties with Jackson County. After law school, my wife actually took her first job here as assistant district attorney, and we thank Jackson County for that. I've also been endorsed by Jackson County's former Senate candidate, Andy Garrison, and today I earned the endorsement of Sheriff Janice Mangum. I have a beautiful wife named Ashley and two beautiful little girls, Hallie and Hazel, and I look forward to answering these questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 1 minute to open, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, TJ, with the Jackson County GOP for hosting this event. I'm Stacey Hall, and I'm asking to be your next state senator. I've been married to my wife, Ivy, for 20 years. We have two teenage children, ages 17 and 15, and we're a host family for two international students at Truett McConnell University. I've spent a career as an educator and a businessman for 29 years, and I believe this is the greatest place on earth to live. And my desire is to serve my community, and it's not just started with this campaign. I've volunteered in many different roles on many different local boards, community and civic groups. I've also served as past chairman of our local hospital and currently serve as chairman of our Habersham County Board of Commissioners. I believe this is a valuable community-focused experience. And I want to be able to use that experience to effectively serve as your state senator. I'm a conservative Republican that backs Donald Trump. I believe in the Bible and the Constitution. I'm pro-life. I'm certified by Georgia Life Alliance. I'm a defender of our Second Amendment rights, and I'm endorsed by Georgia Carry. Thank you.
Let's start with you, Mr. Hall. Tonight we had an opening, and we appreciate the Mayor of Commerce giving an opening statement to our audience. But we had the Mayor of Commerce, and you being currently Commission Chair, you understand the relationship. You understand the relationship and the need, and what he says. Healthcare, hospitals are struggling in rural Georgia. Mm-hmm. You understand those things. How will you, if you the next senator, how will you stay in touch with all your commissioners in your district, your cities? How will you do that? Will you go to meetings once every other month? Will you have certain meetings with commissioners? But how will you stay in touch with the elected officials in your district?
Well, first let me say that I'm very proud that I've earned the endorsement of the Commerce Mayor, Dr. Clark Hill. And I appreciate his confidence in me very much, and I think that's indicative of my experience in healthcare as well as a county chairman. I've worked been a commissioner for 3.5 years, and we've got 7 municipalities within Habersham County. So I have worked very closely with mayors, city councilmen, other commissioners, our Chamber of Commerce, our Economic Development Council in pursuing shared initiatives such as whether it's SPOS initiatives, whether it's retail development projects, whether it's a strategic delivery service, whether it's comp plans. So I've got a track record of working with those folks, and I think it's very important to understand that because of that experience, I understand the language that our city councilmen and mayors are using, the commissioners they're using. I understand the issues that they face both at a state level and a local level. and also understand what unfunded mandates can do to a local community. So specifically to answer your question, I believe it's about relationships. Brian, I think you've got to have existing, genuine, deep relationships with the local officials and be accessible and in constant contact with them. So you mentioned my time on the hospital authority, and our rural hospitals are under siege. I mean, they are really struggling right now. And for many different reasons, indigent care, bad debt, Medicare, shrinking reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid, and then the negotiations with private insurance carriers continue to drive the cost down. And then you add COVID to the mix. So there's a myriad of things going on in rural health care. And because I have that background as chairman of the board, and I've been intricately involved in that process, I think I'm best equipped to be able to work and partner with our local communities to help the rural hospitals and the communities.
Mr. Hatchett, 1 minute response to his answer there, but the question is, as the mayor said, that he brought up some issues that they're facing, all your commissioners, and stay local in the district. How you plan to stay committed to them and communicate and be there for the needs of this district?
Well, I think you hit it right on the head when you first started, when you said relationships. And the common theme when I speak to county commissioners, mayors across the district is, if you're elected, will you be accessible? Can we call you when we need something? And I think it starts with having a good relationship with county commissioners, having, I want to be accessible not only to them, but to the people. Some of the issues that I've heard about don't come from, necessarily elected officials. They come from individuals in the district. And I've, tried to be transparent with the voters. I've had my cell phone out there from the very beginning. And I think, building those relationships, having constant contact with local government authorities, saying, hey, if you need me, call me, we'll figure this out. I think that's the key in being an effective leader and effective state senator.
I want to go back to you, Mr. Hall, on something you said. As county commissioner, I have gone to several chair commissioners. I sit down in their office and just talk to them and interviewed them, and I will hear unfunded mandates and the state. If I could get this off my desk, I've actually had somebody say, this is from the state. Would you make a commitment to the chairman, the commissioners, the mayors? Would you make a commitment in voting for legislation in Atlanta not to vote for anything that is an unfunded mandate that puts a burden on the district financially?
I would support any legislation that limited unfunded mandates, because I've had, I've got a relationship with most of the commissioners throughout the district, and I went to commissioner training through ACCG with a lot of the commissioners, and I have a very close relationship with them. And one of the biggest issues we talk about, because I'm right there with them, and we deal with it too, is unfunded mandates. And I realize that there are situations where the state, the General Assembly, believes that they're making the best interest for the community, but at the same time, when we have these unfunded mandates and we don't have any mechanism in place to pay for them, then we are forced to pass that burden on to the taxpayers when we didn't make the decision to move forward with that initiative. So I would absolutely support legislation that limited unfunded mandates. And a lot of that happens, those discussions, Brian, happen without communication or input from commissioners or mayors or city council members, and then they get stuck with it. So as a state legislator, going back to, as I talked about relationships, and I have very genuine relationships with a lot of these folks, we got to have that dialogue. We before, as a state senator, as I'm representing Jackson County and all the other counties, I have to have constant dialogue with elected leaders and community leaders in each of these communities as this information is going on. I'm not an expert on all things, and I want to seek counsel. I think it's wise for a representative, in this case a state senator, to seek counsel from others in specific areas on how that legislation might impact them specifically.
Mayors, commissioners, post commissioners, and municipalities in your district, can they count on you to contact them and tell them what's going on? Can you make a commitment to them not to put, because it eventually goes to the taxpayers. Can you make a commitment not to vote for anything that is an unfunded mandate that would reflect your district, be put on your district?
Well, I've talked to several elected officials that are down at the Capitol now, and one of the biggest things is, a lot of people don't know this, there's only one bill constitutionally in the state Georgia Constitution that as a state legislature you have to pass, and that's a balanced budget. We have to pass a balanced budget every year, and I think anyone that followed the budget this year knew that it was very controversial with all the cuts that we had. So a lot of times that budget comes down to the last minute, and there are things that are taken out and put in at the very end. But what I can promise and pledge is, something that I've spoken to John Wilkinson about, something I've spoken to former Senator Jim Butterworth about is, you may not be able to control everything that goes into that budget because there's 56 senators and then the House of Representatives that has to pass it. What I can promise is I'll give you a heads up if I think something's coming. And I don't think mandatory mandates are fair, but sometimes when they're there, I'll make sure you're ready, because if it takes a city or a county off guard, then they are going to have to hamstring their budget to pay for it. And that's something that I'll do my best to communicate with these leaders and make sure they're prepared.
Would you like to respond?
Well, I'd just like to add one thing, if I may. And I think tonight's about drawing contrast, right? And I think that's why we're here. And I think this is a very important point. Because of my role as a county commissioner and chairman the last couple years, and because of my work very closely with our 7 municipalities, we speak the same language. I understand exactly what they deal with at every turn. I understand all the issues they're facing. I understand the processes that they're going through, the rules that they're having to deal with, and I understand how legislation passed at the state level will impact locally. And with all due respect to my opponent, that is valuable experience. I mean, I have gone through ACCG training. I have sat through many classes on local leadership and local governance, and understand those laws and how it's constructed and how it impacts our local community. I understand how the tax assessor's office work. I understand how the tax commissioner's office work. All these different multifaceted approaches within local governments, both at the mayor, at the local city level and the county commission level, and how they interact with each other and how they interrelate, how they can complement and how they can screw things up. That experience is important, and I don't want us to overlook that, because I haven't been perfect, I admit, but I've learned a lot. And I want to take that experience, not what I hope I can do, but what I know I can do because of the experience that I've gained by being in the driver's seat. You can't replace that.
The reason we're asking this opening up, because recently, Georgia is returning economically due to Governor Brian Kemp opening things back up, and SPLOST is returning, and we're seeing growth. But right now, we don't know what could happen with COVID, and we don't know on the city level and the county level some of the budgetary things that they're going to have difficulty with. So that's why we ask, are you going to watch first? Now, your opponent here, Mr. Hall, says he understands, being a county chairman, he understands the effects of these unfunded mandates and what these laws, the burdens would be put on. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, I would. I haven't been the chairman of the county commission. I haven't, but I've worked down at the Capitol. I know how the budget process works. I know that you have to pass a balanced budget, and what I can say is, I think it's very important that we train our county commissioners and we train our mayors to be able to handle unfunded mandates and handle last-minute budget changes. But the most important thing that I think we can help is to make sure you, like I said earlier, stay in contact with them and give them a heads up. Say, hey, this may come down the pipe, and you need to be prepared for it.
All right, we want to move. Go ahead.
Just ask a clarifying question or statement, because I've
try to
heard
make
this,
that about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
so
well, I've heard this statement over and over and over again through the campaign. I'm just a little puzzled because my opponent says he worked down at the Capitol. My understanding is that it was a 4-month internship for Governor Deal. Now, I value internships, and I've been an intern and I've hired interns, but working in a place or at a place, and interning is completely different. So I just want to clarify, it was my understanding, and according to my opponent's LinkedIn page, it was a 4-month internship.
All right, 30 seconds if you want.
Yes, it was. It was a 4-month internship with Governor Deal with his legislative council. I got to learn a lot about drafting legislation. We were given projects about upcoming bills, and we got to work with his legislative council. We got to work with other states, governor's offices, and I got to learn a lot in that short time frame. But I also worked at the Capitol the year before, and I got to learn about the bill-making process, and I worked for a conservative group that pushed legislation. I got to be in the committee meetings, and I got to see firsthand how Democrats try to block bills, throw bad language in bills, and I'll be ready on day one to defend that and make sure good legislation is passed.
Okay, in the interest of getting some more things, then we're going to move on, okay? Let's go with you, Mr. Hatchett. Obviously, this past session, we started out the Rainy Day Fund in Georgia, everything economically on the upside when we went down and started the 2020 legislative session. And then we didn't have crossover day, we had crossover months. And then we went back for 10 days. So there were several campaign promises and things that were promised to the citizens of Georgia that did not make it out and may have financial restraints due to budgets. But let's hit on a couple of these. I want to put two of them together at one time, put it together at one time, and obviously it will have to do with revenue. A 2018 tax cut, the 2018 tax cut, which reduced the income tax rate from 6% to 5.75% on the citizens of Georgia. This year, opening the legislative session, Georgia's personal income tax rate was going to go from 5.75 to 5.375. That was a promise when the first tax cut came. This year they were not able to do the tax cut. Obviously, I want to know what you feel about continuing and making sure we keep the promises to the citizens of Georgia with the tax cut. The second thing I would like to put in there, because it's two things, teacher pay raises. The Governor Brian Kemp, if memory serves me right, on the campaign offered a $6,000 pay raise for teachers. In his first legislative session, he was able to do $4,000, but this year they were not able to do the additional $2,000. So next year, as a new state senator, would you go down there looking to keep these two promises to the citizens that were made?
I would, absolutely. One of the things about being a conservative is when you make a promise, you need to stick to it. And another thing about being a conservative is making a wise decision that won't put your state in jeopardy. And what Governor Kemp did on his campaign trail, and I fully believe he intended to do that, was to drop the income tax down to 5.375%. But no one could foresee the coronavirus. And I think if that would not have happened, he would have delivered on that promise. We have several months until one of us would be elected and take the reins down at the Capitol in January. We may have to vote on an amended budget depending upon how the tax revenue, the state revenue is over the next several years. But I would work hard to lower taxes. I mean, we're Republicans, right? But the second part is about the teachers. I'm with Governor Kemp 100%. We've got to support our public school teachers. I'm a product of public school education. I grew up in public schools, and the time and energy that these public school teachers poured into me was tremendous, and kind of made me who I am today. And they were well deserving of the raise that he gave them last session, and unfortunately they weren't able to deliver this year. But I look forward to pushing that through next year if it's put on the table.
What say you, Mr. Hall?
Well, thanks, Brian, for asking that question. And I would agree on supporting both those two initiatives. Certainly, as a conservative, and especially a fiscal conservative, I'm always going to fight as hard as I can and push for lower taxes. I think that's a good decision to do that. I am, if you're in responsible government, there are times during, like the time that we are in during COVID, nobody could foresee this coming. It really kind of upset some of the sales tax revenue and a lot of other revenue streams that the government was counting on. And sometimes there's no perfect answer. There just isn't. You might be two different options that you've got to weigh, and neither one of them are great, but you've got to choose them. Let me say about the teachers' pay raise. As an educator for over 12 years, I taught in public schools. I grew up in public schools. I believe very strongly in public schools and supporting our teachers. And I've always believed that as public school systems go, so go our communities. The two are interchangeably or very interrelated and connected to each other.
The reason I put the two together is a tax cut for the citizens, which was promised, and then the teachers have gotten $4,000 of the $6,000 raise that was promised. If you go and you look at, well, this is an increase in spending and this is maybe a cut in state revenue, which promise do you keep?
Between the two?
Between the two.
Well, that's a very difficult question, and it's one that, I'm sure the governor, when he puts out his budget in the beginning of the session, that we'll address then. I think it's very important that we need to fund teachers, but I'd like to see a tax decrease on myself. I'd like to do both, and if it's possible, we should. If it's not, we need to compromise on both. Maybe a lesser decrease on the income tax, and I would still try to support giving teachers raises because they are needed and well deserved.
What's that you?
Well, see, I think this is a great example of the difference between me and my opponent. I'm not an or guy. I'm an and guy. I think you can try to do both. And it's not always one or the other. Sometimes you can do both, but you have to be creative and you got to have grit to be able to do it, Brian. I've got 18 years of business experience. 13 years in corporate America, overseeing a large division, and it's 5 years as a small business owner. The NFIB, National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is the voice of small business, has endorsed me. And the reason they've endorsed me is because they understand that I'm passionate about our small businesses, which are the heartbeat of our communities. And I think the answer to your question is let's focus on ways we can drive incremental revenue through businesses. Let's ramp up businesses. Listen, I want to work with our business leaders, both large and small, in our communities all over the state of Georgia, but especially in Senate District 50. What resources do they need to be able to thrive and do great things and to hire more people and expand? Are there things that we can do from a governmental level to lessen the burden of overregulation by the government? Are there things that we can do to help speed up hiring process? Are there things that we can do to help embolden training processes? Again, it goes back to a philosophy of I'm an and guy, not an or guy. I want to use my extensive years of business experience, including being a business professor, a college business professor, to work with our businesses in our local communities, drive the revenue up for them so that we don't have to make the decision and over one or the other and not deliver on our promises for government. But I'm passionate about this, Brian. I think I can make a difference.
Would you like to respond?
No.
Okay, we're going to move on. I want to ask the Farm Bill. It's known Right to Farm. Right to Farm. It was House Bill 554. It moved over from the Senate, but the Senate had to do some negotiating to get it out of there. They called it a hot potato. It got over to the House, did not make it to the governor's desk. Mr. Hatchett, the Right to Farm Bill, what say you? Do you want to see that come back if you're a senator next year? Would you like to see that come back? Could you accept it with the original language or the language, as many are saying, that attorneys forced to take out new language that was put in it to move it over to the House? So with the 50th district being a very agricultural area, what say you on the Right to Farm Bill for Atlanta?
100% support the Right to Farm bill as it was written. I think it was a very...
Wait, I'm sorry. As it was originally written?
As it was originally written.
Okay.
I do. I think it was John Wilkinson had a large part in doing that. And,
Yes.
and agriculture's the engine of Northeast Georgia. It's the engine of Georgia. And we've got to do everything we can to protect agriculture. And this goes back to, what happens to good bills? Things are added to them. Things are taken away from them in the last minute to try to stall the bill, and that's what happened with this one, unfortunately. But I would like to see it back on the table in January, and I'd proudly vote for it.
What say you, Mr. Hall?
Well, agriculture is incredibly important to our district. In fact, as you know, Senate District 50 is made up of 8 counties. 4 of those 8 counties are in the top 10 in the state of Georgia in terms of farm gate value. Jackson County is 7th in the state in farm gate value, which is significant. So I absolutely support the Right to Farm bill. And interestingly enough, as I'm reading through the Georgia Farm Bureau 2020 Legislative Recap Report, Georgia Farm Bureau, and you can research me on this quote, but Georgia Farm Bureau blames trial lawyers and environmental lobbyists who defeated it because if you limit the opportunity to sue, then it's going to limit the opportunity for lawyers to make money off that lawsuit. So, I'm as a businessman, as somebody that's very passionate about agriculture and is backed and supported by many farmers within Senate District 50, I am going to do everything in my power to help usher House Bill 545 across the finish line.
Just real quick, what you were talking about is the changes in the language that was made to get it through litigation to minimize litigation to get it out of the Senate?
Well, what I'm talking about is Georgia Farm Bureau in their 2020 legislative report specifically credited trial lawyers and environmental activists for the reason why the bill failed.
Would you like to respond to that?
Well, I think the reason why the bill failed is because it didn't get on the floor. And I'm not sure which environmental lobbyists or which trial lawyers would have been able to put language in. But I do know this, with working at the Capitol, and seeing that firsthand how bills are picked away at and how really good bills that everyone wants to vote for, people will slide in language at the very end, and now you've got to answer why you didn't vote for it. That's something that I'm ready to play defense on, and I'd like to get that bill through because every farmer that I've talked to in the district is in support of it, and so am I.
Well, when you say it didn't get on the floor, it didn't get on the floor of the House, but the only way it got out of the Senate was to alter the language, and articles point to satisfy trial lawyers, not my. So it's not that it didn't get on the floor. So you said, just to recap, give you a chance, you said you would support it in its original language.
Correct. In
the original language, and will you make that a priority for this district when you go if elected?
Absolutely.
Okay. You want to respond because I want to move to something else.
Let's go.
Okay. This did not make it. It was formerly Senate Bill 403. It got added to HB 903. We've been hearing for years sports betting. It was originally tabled. The Senate voted to revive Senate Bill 403 that allowed wagers on sports in Georgia, that the state lottery system would oversee sports betting. That being said, where do you stand, and we'll go with you, we'll let you start, Mr. Hall. Where do you stand on sports betting, internet sports betting, OTB, off-track betting, horse betting, and maybe even casinos or riverboat gambling, the whole thing? Where do you stand on that? Are those the kind of things you could support?
Well, I'm glad you asked this. I am a conservative Republican, and I am a Southern Baptist. I do believe in dancing, but I can't dance. However, related to gambling, I would never support, and this is a pledge, I would never support any type of gambling. I just, and if other legislators or colleagues want to support it, that's fine. I'm not going to criticize them, their belief, their judgment, but I will not support any gambling casino, sports, my belief system is that I don't think is a good thing. And the folks that I believe that will vote for me believe the same thing. And if for those folks that think that this is a defining issue and they can't support a candidate that doesn't believe in gambling, then I'm probably not their candidate. But I'm going to be honest about it. My faith is very important to me. I don't criticize folks that gamble. You want to gamble, have a great time. That's fine. But for me, I choose not to gamble. I bought one lottery ticket before, Brian, and that was on a college road trip with some buddies, and I didn't win. I've never bought one since. That was a long time ago, and I won't do it again. But I just don't believe in gambling. You can make all kinds of we can do the math, and you can show me all kinds of revenue, how it's great, how's this, how's that, and that's fine. And those numbers are probably pretty true or close to accurate. But to me, what happens as a result of that activity is not worth the revenue. For me, and again, I don't criticize anybody that supports it, but for me personally, I'm not going to sell out my values and belief system for dollar signs. I'll never do it. I'll just never do it.
So you're saying any piece of legislation that comes to the floor that would legalize gambling, you're a no vote?
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going. I thought I was clear on that.
Well, I thought you were too.
Yeah. We can clear it up some more, Brian. This is good. I appreciate you underscoring the point. No, I would not support it. You can count me as a no vote.
Do you need me to repeat the question, Mr. Hatchett?
I got
All
it.
right.
I do not support the sports betting or anything like that. I think I would be a hypocrite to say that I would be against all gambling, because, to be quite honest, myself, my brother, my sister, we all got to go to college on the Hope Scholarship, which is funded by the Georgia Lottery. And while I don't agree with gambling, I think the Georgia Lottery has done a huge part in furthering the education systems in our state. And I'm not for expanding it in any way, shape, or form. But I will say that I'm with it as far as the lottery goes, but beyond that, I can't support gambling because it just goes against my beliefs.
Let me follow this up, and I'll start with you, and we'll try to stay in 30 seconds here if we can. Okay, so, but what we hear a lot of Georgia lawmakers say, it's time for the citizens of Georgia to decide. It's a constitutional amendment. Let's put it on the ballot and let the people out there decide if they want gambling. Kind of takes it off you. So if there's a bill that says, hey, let the citizens of Georgia decide on a constitutional amendment about gambling, is that something you could be in favor of?
That's a fair question, and generally I would say yes, generally, and I've proven a track record on that. We had a jail bond referendum that we needed a new jail, and we could have gone around the voters by creating a public facilities authority and giving them the power to issue bonds, but that wasn't the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to let the people who were paying for it make the decision, so I voted to put it on the bond referendum. However, in this instance, I just simply cannot support that initiative. I just can't. I wouldn't try to take away the Georgia Lottery. It is what it is at this point. Would certainly not vote to expand it or not vote for any new gambling.
30 seconds. Would you like to follow up on that constitutional amendment? Because you said that you wouldn't be in favor of voting for gambling, but what about if there's a bill that says constitutional amendment and let the citizens of Georgia decide if they want it or not?
I'm a constitutionalist, 100%, the U.S. Constitution and the Georgia Constitution, but once again, I don't think casinos have any room here in Georgia, and I would be against that.
Okay, we're going to take a brief break so our candidates can get a drink of water, and we're going to come right back after these messages. And when we get to the other side, we're also going to have an opportunity for these candidates to ask each other questions. So don't go away. We'll be back in about 3 minutes.
This is Bo Hatchett, Republican candidate for State Senate, and I approve this message. Having been raised here, I understand that honesty, integrity, and hard work are what we expect from our elected officials. I want you to know, in Atlanta, you can count on me to defend our Northeast Georgia values. I've been certified pro-life by Georgia Life Alliance. I was honored to get the highest rating possible from the NRA for a non-politician, and I'm thankful to have the endorsement of Governor Nathan Deal. I've been a supporter of President Donald Trump since the 2016 primary, and I will fight to make sure the Trump agenda is carried out at the state level. Right now, this means getting our roaring economy going again. People all across Northeast Georgia want to get back to work. As a small business owner and political outsider, I look forward to working with Governor Kemp as he reopens and looks for new ways to expand Georgia's economy. If you have any questions at all about where I stand on an issue, please call me directly at 706-499-6941. Thank you.
Paid for by Hatchet for Georgia.
Hello, I'm Senator Steve Gooch, and I'm proud to be a rock-solid conservative who has continuously voted North Georgia values on your behalf at the state capitol in Atlanta. I am a pro-life, pro-guns, pro-law enforcement, and pro-Trump Republican. The election in November is the most important in decades. We must send a strong conservative Republican back to Washington, D.C. to continue the work that our current Congressman Doug Collins has started by defending liberty, capitalism, and the America that our founding fathers created when they adopted the Bill of Rights 244 years ago. We cannot trust the Democrats to protect us with their radical left-wing liberal ideas and policies. Our country is at a turning point, and we need every Republican to come out on August the 11th to elect the best candidates running in the runoff elections for Congressional District 9 and State Senate District 50. It is imperative that every Republican vote is cast on November 3rd so that the liberals cannot destroy the republic that so many veterans have sacrificed their lives in order to preserve our freedoms. And finally, I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd to allow me to continue to fight for conservative North Georgia values at the state capitol. My name is Senator Steve Gooch, and I approve this message.
In 2013, a fellow Northeast Georgian, Andrew Clyde, experienced IRS abuse in the form of civil asset forfeiture firsthand.
I'm Andrew Clyde, combat veteran, small business owner, and Republican candidate for Congress. When the IRS unconstitutionally seized $940,000 from my armory, I took them to court and won. But when I found out that other innocent Americans were losing their small businesses to the same IRS abuse, I decided this was war. I went to Washington to testify against the IRS, and with the help of Congressman Doug Collins, we won again. On July 1st, 2019, President Trump signed our bill into law as part of the Taxpayers First Act, ensuring the corrupt IRS never did this to another American again. I'm Andrew Clyde, Republican candidate for Congress. I approve this message because when it comes to protecting our freedoms, you have to know how to fight and win.
Hey, we're back live from the Commerce Civic Center, and you're watching the State Senate District 50 Republican Party debate. We want to thank, and we have our candidates Bo Hatchett and Stacey Hall, and we want to thank the Jackson County Republican Party for sponsoring this debate. We want to remind you, Monday, early voting starts, and August 11th is Election Day. All right, gentlemen, I want to start with, there's really about two more things I want to make sure we get into tonight before we wrap up. This is going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. So let me read this statement. This is a statement that I pulled, and so I'm going to quote it, okay? And this question is going to go to you. Georgia has slid from 26th to 41st in recent survey conducted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the state's legal environment. Okay? We have also been named, I'm reading this quote, we have also been named in the top 10 states list as judicial hellholes. Okay? For plaintiffs, attorneys, and frivolous lawsuits. As you know, this unusual burden is passed on to every small business in Georgia, which ultimately gets paid for by the consumers in a way of higher cost and all goods and services, including groceries, clothing, car insurance. It's an enormous amount. Now, Senate Bill 415 would alter many areas in Georgia's civil judicial system. Would you support Senate Bill 415 and look at tort reform in Georgia if you are the next senator?
I knew this question was coming tonight. Tort reform is something that's thrown out a lot by lobbyist groups. I'm not surprised that comment came from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the largest lobbying group in the world. They spend more money lobbying than any other group. But what I'd like to look at is, they're saying these things about how, Georgia's a judicial hellhole, and yet for the last 7 years in a row, we've been named the #1 state in the nation to do business, not by a lobbying group, but by an outside magazine that actually cares about businesses. When you say frivolous lawsuits, Senate Bill 415 did nothing to prevent frivolous lawsuits, if you read the bill. In Georgia, we have 5 statutes on the books to prevent frivolous lawsuits already. So while I know there are things that should be changed in the judicial system, especially in the Civil Practice Act, that bill would have been completely unconstitutional. It only would have helped insurance companies. And, the Georgia Chamber loves to say, well, insurance premiums are going up for all Americans. Well, when Allstate makes $15.9 billion in profits, when State Farm can give their CEO an $8 million bonus, I think we need to look at where the money's going and where the money can be saved, because that would pay a lot of premiums in Georgia.
What say you, Mr. Hall?
Well, again, this is an area of differentiation between my opponent and I am. I'm a businessman, and he's an attorney, so obviously he's going to profit from the civil suits favoring the plaintiff and not the defendant. And I respect that. That's fine. That's his business. But I'm going to side on business. $3,631 is the cost that each family pays, an additional cost of goods and services every year in Georgia because of the passed along costs of frivolous lawsuits. Auto insurance does go up 54% versus the national average of 22% between 2011 and 2017 directly because of frivolous lawsuits. And we can always say, and this is when somebody that doesn't have enough experience in business is where businesses are making a bunch of money. Well, yeah, that's the goal for business, make money. They feed our 401ks, they employ people, they invest in our communities, they pay taxes in our communities, they pay taxes in for our state. I want businesses to make money, absolutely, but I also want to save money for our Georgia families. So, you can have and. It's not an or situation. Let's save money for our families. Let's help our businesses prosper so that we can, Brian, give those teachers that $2,000 additional raise and drop that the income tax rate. How in the world are we going to give those teachers that raise, drop the tax rate if businesses don't make money? Well, that's not a bad thing. 70% of Georgians want lawsuit reform. 70%, and it's needed. And all this bill
does. Can you tell me where you get that data from? Is that
it's probably the Georgia Chamber website.
No, there's a separate. It's a legislative.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, sir.
That's a valid question. I don't have it right now. It is a quote. I can get it for you.
Okay, I didn't mean to
But
interrupt you. I apologize.
it is not from the Chamber of Commerce, and I should know it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I'll get you that.
How would you like to respond to what he just said? Because obviously we have two different sides here, and you seem to see it a different way. So what say you?
Well, I mean, my stance, and it's been my stance from the very beginning of this campaign, I'm a constitutionalist, and I believe my opponent earlier said I'll never trade dollars for values, and you know what I see in this bill is it does not help the consumers. I don't know how it will help businesses other than insurance companies, and I'm a true constitutionalist, and the 7th Amendment in the United States Constitution allows an individual to recover if someone does them wrong. And it was put into our Constitution by our founding fathers because they lived in a place where government overreached and they didn't have recourse. And people lost their homes and people lost their lives because they couldn't recover. And that's the beautiful thing about our judicial system in the United States is you are allowed to recover. And that's what the 7th Amendment protects. And I'm going to stand up for the 7th Amendment, just like I'm going to stand up for the 2nd Amendment and the 1st Amendment, because once you start conceding to liberal organizations that want to chip away at the Constitution, you'll open the floodgates. And I'm going to stand on my beliefs as a constitutionalist and protect all your amendments.
What say you? You want to respond?
Clearly, this is a point that we disagree with entirely. Bringing up the 7th Amendment is a smokescreen. This bill does absolutely nothing to limit or remove the 7th Amendment right to a trial by jury. That is intact. This bill simply and it doesn't cap damages. This bill simply brings a number of changes balancing the Georgia Civil Code to the federal rules and civil provisions. Some of the changes include scheduling orders, discovery stay, amended pleas, discovery methods, privileged information, protected orders, depositions, interrogations, voluntary dismissal, so that it's balanced. Because right now it's not balanced. Right now, the plaintiffs have more opportunity in those categories to get after somebody than the defendant has the right to defend themselves. And I think it's fair that everyone out there, every individual, every business owner has a equal right, equally protected under the Constitution, to defend themselves and have an equal opportunity in the court of law and are judged by the same level. So this does nothing to take. That is a smokescreen, and that's been said over and over again on the campaign trail too.
Let me ask you this. I'll give you an opportunity to respond to what he said, but let me ask you this. As an attorney, I understand, and we all understand that a client that retains you need to represent that client, and that's understandable. So I don't question you representing your client, but as a state senator, he keeps bringing up plaintiff and defendant. So all across the district, there's your plaintiffs and your defendants, and they all live in the same district. Do you see no area tort reform in Atlanta? Do you see any kind of bill that you could put your name on in tort reform, caps, anything like that?
Well, that's what I said in the beginning. I think there's always room to reform the tort system. But you specifically asked about this bill.
Yes,
and
I did.
That bill is 100% unconstitutional. That bill takes away vicarious liability. That bill would allow a truck driver who had multiple violations to get in a car, run over your family, and you can't sue them because he has a valid CDL. That's it. That's the only requirement. That bill would allow, if my family, my daughters, stayed in a hotel and they were kidnapped by sex traffickers and the hotel knew the sex traffickers were there, that bill would prevent me from being able to recover from it. There are some good things in that bill. I think there are several things, and I've talked to, my dad's a physician, I've talked to doctors. I'm a small business owner. This bill does away with vicarious liability for landowners. I have rental property. I would love this bill. It would take away my liability completely. But then I wouldn't be responsible for my own property. And I can't, while it would help me as a small business owner and a landowner, it would not help people of Senate District 50 if they are harmed. And it would take away their constitutional right to recover when they are injured.
So you couldn't get behind this bill?
No, absolutely
But
not.
if there was another bill written on tort reform, that's something you could look at.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, 30 seconds, we're going to wrap this up, and then I'm going to give you the last word on it.
I disagree with some of that, but instead of taking point by point, because we only got 30 seconds, I'll say this. I talk to small business owners daily, many of them daily. Every single small business owner, without question, tells me that they're exceptionally concerned about being sued for stuff that they didn't do anything wrong. Because in some cases, I'm not talking about all attorneys. I'm not against attorneys, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But there are, and everybody knows this, there are many billboard attorneys out there that are overzealous and are seeking to sue somebody for something they didn't do, hoping to settle. I can tell you this happened to us at the county level, where we've done absolutely nothing wrong. The plaintiff knows we didn't do anything wrong, but they also know it's cheaper to settle. It's always cheaper. It might cost you $300,000 to fully litigate, $100,000 to settle. It's a business decision. Let's settle. It's wrong, Brian. The Georgians and Americans are getting fleeced by the system. I'm not going to allow it. As a state senator, I'm going to stand up for the people that are getting fleeced by these frivolous lawsuits.
30 seconds to respond to that.
Yeah, I can tell you're very passionate about it. And you know what? If insurance companies always settled, I would not have a job if they did what they were supposed to do. But I think everyone in this room, and maybe everyone watching, if you ever had a fender bender, if you've ever dinged your car, you're going to have arguments with insurance companies. And if they did what they were supposed to do, you wouldn't need an attorney. But you know what? They have a vested interest in making sure that, the profits on insurance companies, like I said, billions and billions of dollars a year in profits, being able to bonus your CEO millions of dollars, the issue is not lawyers. And when you say that, you're actually insulting the clients, because I just help people that come to me. I don't have billboards. I don't advertise. And if you ask any defense attorney in the state of Georgia about Dennis Cathy or about my law firm, they will give you a positive review, and that's why I have defense attorneys that have donated to me as well.
Okay, we're going to move here now. You on this next question, both of you could have 2 minutes to answer it, and both of you can have 1 minute to respond to the other's answer, and you'll understand where I'm going here. I've been down to the Capitol, and it's quite an exciting day, and they make a big event of it when a freshman senator gets their first bill on the floor. And it's a lot of fun to go down there, and some of your colleagues pick on you a little bit, and you get your first bill on the floor. So instead of asking, why are you running, what is the first bill you want to go down and you want to save that SB number, and you want to be the author, Stacey Hall, of a bill for this district in the state of Georgia? What is the first bill you want to work on with your name you want to write?
Yeah, well, that's a tough question, because there are several things I'm very passionate about. So the first bill, I'm not sure. Certainly priority is to help usher in the Georgia Right to Farm bill. That's already.
I'm not implying it's the only thing you would do, but what
so the first one, I'm passionate about vocational training. I mean, as a former educator and somebody that has been involved in a lot of different facets of education, as a home builder and as a small business owner and as a community leader, I am inundated with complaints and concerns with citizens about the lack of vocational tradesmiths, about skilled labor. One of the biggest reasons pre-COVID, and it'll get there again eventually, is the lack of skilled, trained labor so that companies can grow and expand. That could be welders, it could be plumbers, it could be electricians, it could be a number of different things. Just skilled labor. These are respected, quality jobs. You can get a 1 year or 2 year certificate from a community college, making $55,000 a year with a welding certificate with no debt. Versus going and getting a 4-year college degree and going into tens of thousands of debt. So we need to take the stigma away from that. So to answer your question more directly, I want to put more incentive and opportunity through different resources to allow additional vocational training in our high schools. And not only the training, teaching the skills, Brian, but help encourage local businesses to be involved in the curriculum development. I mean, why do we go to school? Why do we get an education in the first place? It's to get hired and get a job, right? So why not let the employers that do the hiring be involved in the curriculum development instead of just the academics? I think that makes pretty good sense. So more mentorships, more opportunities, more businesses involved in curriculum development, more co-op opportunities, and really laser in on the vocational training. Because if we do that right, Brian, if we get that right, I mean, who knows what could happen in Georgia? Our businesses could take off. And yes, our businesses will make money, which is good for everybody, because then we get raises, we get expanded, we get better benefits, we can get more tax revenue, pave our roads. So I want everybody to make more money. As a conservative, I don't want to limit anybody's income.
No, that's really not a kind of question for a response unless you want to.
No, but I would like to answer the question.
No, you're going to get the
Okay,
same
yeah,
question.
yeah,
I just want you to be able to respond, both of you, if you do. So I'm going to put it the same way, and you know, I enjoy it. A little different here. I'll say that on TV. I enjoy going down to the Capitol and seeing a new senator get their first bill on the floor, and it's not implying it's your only one or what you're going to do. But as far as Bo Hatchett, SB number so and so. The first one you get your name on. What do you would like to work on there?
Well, I tell you, I've actually been in the Senate Rules Committee meeting when Senator Harper brought his first bill, and I can't remember what it was, but if you the senators will get in there and haze you and grill you questions about it. So I know that you wanted this to be kind of a fun question, and it's usually a fun process. If I can remember. Some of the bills that I've heard of are naming roads for people, or having a Senate resolution to honor someone. To be completely honest, I would probably want to honor the senator that's leaving this district and have some type of resolution for him and the work that he did with agriculture. And I think that'd be a fun bill to do, and could honor the guy that we're looking to fill his shoes.
Okay, I'm going to open up with you on this question. Not that I went to him first, but this is going to be a back and forth. The last question I had some back and forth you got, so I'm going to open up with you over here, Mr. Hall, with this question. If you're elected to the state Senate, will you commit to introducing legislation to ensure that no illegal aliens are able to access taxpayer-funded public benefits beyond what is mandated by Congress and demand enforcement of current law? Now, maybe you don't know the current law. I can understand that. OCGA 50-36-1, designed to accomplish that goal.
I'm absolutely 100% against any form of illegal immigration. Illegal immigration. Now, in the agricultural community, which is very important in this district, there is legal migrant workers that do help. And I've talked to a lot of farmers that rely very heavily upon that migrant workforce. But absolutely, without question, I would do everything in my power to stop, not limit, stop, cease, and desist illegal immigration. I think it's destroying our country. I think the fact that illegal immigrants who, you know, some are good people and are coming here and trying to make a better life for themselves, and I understand that. But there's a legal way to do it. And the folks, it's not fair for all the good folks that are waiting in line and doing the process, doing the paperwork, paying the fees, all that good stuff to come into the country legally. And we need to know who comes into this country. But under no way, in no shape or form, would I allow illegal immigrants to collect any type of benefits especially that are paid for by taxpayers. I mean, what's going on in California, where you can get a driver's license, you can get free college, free tuition, free all kinds of stuff, is outrageous. Again, this doesn't go to the fact that we're not compassionate about others. We need to be compassionate about others, but we have a legal immigration process that needs to be followed. Now, does that need to be fixed a little bit, improved a little bit, some areas that need to be corrected? Yeah, I think so. That's at the federal level, and certainly would support that. But any form of illegal immigration that provided benefits in the state of Georgia would not get much favor with me at all.
Taxpayers, let me read the question again so I give you the exact question. If you are elected to state Senate, will you commit to introducing legislation to ensure that no illegal aliens are able to access taxpayer-funded public benefits beyond what is mandated by Congress and demand enforcement of current state law? There's a current state law designed to accomplish that. And I gave the law code just a minute ago. What say you?
So obviously there's a law in the book. You said 50-36-1.
Yes.
That prevents illegal aliens from accessing taxpayer dollars. Is that Did you say taxpayer dollars or?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's a problem. I hear about it. I mean, you go anywhere in the district, you'll hear people complaining about this, and I think it's a very important issue. We can't let people come here illegally and then drain our hard-earned money and hard-earned taxpayers' dollars. And I would, I don't know what type of legislation you could put in to reiterate the law, but I would like to. I would pledge to do everything I can to, look at how can we prevent this? How can we stop this? Because it's obviously not working. So we're going to have to do something else to save our taxpayer dollars.
You want to respond? Good. Let me ask you this question. We hear on the presidential campaign trail, and this goes to you, Mr. Hatchett, we hear on the presidential campaign trail that drain the swamp. The President of the United States once says, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. So that being said, you are going to Atlanta. Is there a swamp in Atlanta? Is there any draining needing done in Atlanta? What say you?
I'll tell you one thing. There's definitely a swamp in Washington, D.C. And that's the difference between, a lot of times people go to Washington to make money. I'm going to Atlanta to serve. And, right now, Republicans have a majority in the House and the Senate, and we've made our state the #1 state in the nation to do business. Are there some swamp creatures down in Atlanta that need to be drained? Yes, but it's not a swamp like it is in Washington, D.C.
What say you, Mr. Hall?
I've learned a lot of lessons on this campaign, and there's absolutely a swamp in Atlanta. There's a political machine in place that does everything in their power, accompanied by very powerful lobbyists that make things happen behind the scenes. I've learned a lot of lessons, and it does need to be drained. And it is very unfortunate that this political elite class, this political machine, can wield so much influence on a campaign, on legislative bills, and interfere with some of the legitimate process that should go on to get things accomplished. It's been very eye-opening for me, for sure.
Any response? Or okay, we got to get just a couple more in the respect of time here. I want to go to you on this. We have an omnibus type budget system where all the appropriations committees come out, push it together, and create a state budget. Lawmakers are forced to either vote yes or no on the total package. Do you think they should continue to do budgeting that way, or do you see a possibility where there should be, appropriations should be voted on individually? What say you on the omnibus budgets? If there's something in there that causes you to compromise, but you got to pass the budget.
Well, it's kind of like at the federal level. I would vote against any budget. We'd never pass a budget at the federal level. I would never vote for one if I was a representative because I don't support Planned Parenthood. So we'd never get anything accomplished, or I would never vote for anything like that. So doing it the omnibus way is very problematic. It might be practical, but it's problematic. I would much prefer doing a line item vote. The problem with that is that I'm not really sure that's practical. It would take infinitely more time. There would be infinitely more debate. And the way it is now with 40 days of legislators in session is probably not practical. However, I really wish there was some compromise within the two that would make it more amenable to focus more on the line items, because there's going to be stuff, and that's the dirty thing of politics. If you vote, if I vote for a tax cut, there might be something packaged in that bill literally at midnight that I don't support. Maybe it's gambling. So then if I vote for a tax cut and then there's something in there for gambling, then I've supported gambling. But if I vote for the bill that supports gambling and then includes some kind of reduction in fees, then I voted against a tax decrease. So, these are the political games that are played. I understand it. I don't like it. I would wish that there could be a better system, but we got to find a way that can be done in a more practical sense. And I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure how we do that, but I would certainly advocate for more of a line item type of process.
Do you need me to repeat the question, Mr. Hatchett?
No. Our budget system, like I said, we're a unique state in that we have to pass a balanced budget. I think that's a fiscally conservative thing to do. I think that's why we're one of the best states in the nation to do business. I think that's also telling that, 10 of the best states in the nation to do business are Republican states that practice fiscal conservative practices. As far as the budget goes, we meet 40 legislative days of the year. If we were to do a line item budget like my opponent suggested, which may work, but it would be very difficult and would take a lot more time. The budget is very tricky. As a freshman senator, it's unlikely that anyone would be on the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. There are a lot of people in line that want to be on that. But I do think there is room to change the budget process, and I would be open to that change. But for now, we have what we have.
I don't want to do responses on that in the interest of time. I do, the audience out there, I'm not making light of these issues. They're very important, but I don't want to go away without giving these candidates an opportunity to give their passionate answers concerning these subjects. So we're going to make this 30 seconds because we got to get to your candidate question. 30 seconds, talk to the voters about your position on abortion.
Well, I'm certified pro-life by the Georgia Life Alliance, and I'll just quickly tell a personal story. This is going to be tough. My wife had some thyroid issues. There was a cancerous growth on her thyroid when she was pregnant with my son. Very flippantly, the doctor at that time asked her, or actually just said, we're going to get abortion and then we're going to move forward with surgery. We said no. Even though at that time we thought my wife's life could be at risk. But we thought it was the right thing to do. We support life. Not only do we say we support life, we have a proven track record of supporting life. My wife and I stand side by side in life. This isn't politics. This is personal with me.
30 seconds, Mr. Hatchett.
I'm 100% pro-life. I believe life begins at conception. Stacey and I have very similar stories. As far as, my wife also had cancer. We weren't sure she was going to be able to get pregnant. It was a blessing when she did. And, I'm 100% pro-life. I know we're both certified by the Georgia Life Alliance, and I think that's one good thing. And a tribute to the voters that put us here. That's a very important issue in this district, and I think that's why we're in the positions we are now, and I will fight every day to fight for life.
Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and as we recently see, the right to defend our private property. What is your stance on the Second Amendment? 30 seconds.
Second Amendment was written by our founding fathers when their muskets were still hot from fighting off government overreach, and the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. I think that's all the gun control we need right there.
30 seconds.
I support the Constitution, so I believe in constitutional carry. I am the only candidate endorsed by Georgia Carry because they know that I have a proven track record on supporting our Second Amendment right. Again, it's not that I just say it. I've proven to support it. I led the effort for Habersham County to be the first Second Amendment sanctuary county in the state of Georgia. We were quickly followed by around 40 other counties that actually most of them used our drafted resolution as their template, so I'm very proud of that. But I will always fight for our constitutional rights, including our Second Amendment right, because if we allow the Second Amendment to go, we're going to lose many other rights as well.
All right, we've come to the time in our debate, and we thank you both very much for what we call candidate questions. Mr. Hall, we're going to let you go first. Do you have a question for Mr. Hatchett?
Yes, sir, I do, and this is, we'll try to make this concise, but I want to connect some dots. And I wanted to ask Bo about this because I've heard a lot about it during the campaign. So, as I talked about before, Bo, you did a 4-month internship with Governor Deal. Your sister worked for Governor Deal. Your uncle is the GOP caucus chair for the Georgia House. Governor Deal endorsed you, and then you hired his daughter-in-law to be your fundraiser. 66% of your money comes from outside the district. 71% of your money comes from lawyers, lobbyists, and special interest groups. Now, to my knowledge, as best I can determine, you haven't served or volunteered in the community in any local community groups or charities prior to running for office, nor are you a member, as at the best of my knowledge, of our local Habersham Republican Party. So I'm just asking, how in the world, with all that back scratching going on, are you best equipped to serve the people of the Senate District 50 and not the interests of Atlanta and the political machine?
2 minutes to answer, Mr. Hatchett.
That's an interesting question, and I'll first off say if anyone thinks I'm bought and paid for or anything, it's an attack on my character, and it's just not true. I'm not going to apologize for relationships that I've made, and that's one thing that when you get down in Atlanta and you get to sit in these committee rooms and you see what goes on, you realize that the difference between a good senator and a great senator. A good senator, your job is to push a red button or a green button. A good senator will vote on bills for their district. A great senator can build relationships with people and is likable and will have, when the DOT board has a project, I'll have a relationship with them and I'll be ready to bring a project up to our district. And those relationships, I've built them on the campaign trail. I've built them with our former opponents who have endorsed me. Andy Garrison, a local Jackson County guy, Tricia Heiss from Habersham, Lee Moore from Franklin County. These things it's all about relationships. And to say that all my money came from outside the district, I saw the Northeast Georgian article that said that I had money from Columbus, Georgia. My brother lives in Columbus. Money from Rome, Georgia. My uncle lives in Rome, Georgia. And when I did hire, I hired a fundraiser, and they told me to go knock on the doors of small businesses during the coronavirus and ask for money, and I said no. What I did was I called on colleagues that I went to law school with. I called on lawyers that I've been up against, and I've had those relationships. They know me. Most of them know me and trust me, and I asked for help because I wasn't going to put a financial strain on a business owner during the coronavirus. And I'm not going to apologize that my sister worked for Governor Deal or that I have Governor Deal's support. Governor Deal was a great governor for our state, and I built a relationship. You can belittle the 4-month internship, but I learned so much for him and how to serve. And I worked in his administration. He saw my heart. He saw how I was a hard worker and that I was a conservative Republican, and that's why he endorsed me.
Mr. Hatchett, 2 minutes. Do you have a question for Mr. Hall?
I do, and this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I apologize if this may offend some people in the room, but we've been all over the district. And we've been to a lot of events. And I've got to know, if you're driving from Jackson to Towns County, where are you eating lunch?
From Jackson to Huck's in Commerce.
You eating at Huck's?
Yeah.
That's a good choice. I've been there too. That's my question.
Oh, that was a question?
Yeah. Okay, there are a lot of good restaurants in the district.
Yeah, well, no, I'm thinking about how late
Clark's eating there.
I'm thinking about how late is Huck's open.
Yeah. We may stop there on the way.
All right.
In fact, Andy Garrison's daughter works at Huck's.
Thank you, gentlemen, both of the candidates here. It is now time for our closing statements. 2 minutes to close, Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Don't be quick on the trigger now. I appreciate you, Brian, and the Jackson County GOP. I am Stacey Hall. I'm asking to be your state senator. I've spent 29 years as a businessman and an educator. I believe, we live in the greatest place on earth, and I'm equipped to serve as your state senator. When I think about what's important to a voter, I think integrity, competency has to be at the top of the list. The role of the state senator is certainly not a starting place for service. We need someone who has served locally and understands the needs of the community. I've done that, and we shouldn't elect a senator that doesn't have a proven record of serving the community. My public service is long, includes being chairman of the Habersham County Commission, chairman of the board at our local hospital, chairman of the White County Chamber of Commerce, United Way Board, Fellowship of Christian Athletes Board. I've worked on the county water work group, the local economic development council, the local COVID recovery task force. I'm an active member of our local GOP. I've served on our local school advisory board. I'm a graduate of Leadership Georgia. I'm a graduate of the Georgia Academy for Economic Development, and I've coached numerous youth groups, much to the chagrin of my son. He'd probably wish I hadn't. I've got a proven track record of supporting our law enforcement and all of our first responders. I've got significant experience in business, education, local government, rural health care, all of which are vitally important to our district. I believe this valuable, community-focused track record is essential to effectively serve as your state senator. I'm a conservative Republican. I support Donald Trump as our president. My philosophy is very simple. I believe in the Bible and the Constitution. I'm certified pro-life by Georgia Life Alliance, proven defender of our Second Amendment rights, and led the efforts to make Habersham County first Second Amendment sanctuary county in Georgia. I pledge my unwavering support to our local farmers. I've been endorsed by over 70 local mayors, commissioners, city council members, and community leaders throughout the district. Here in Jacksonville include Dr. Clark Hill, Mayor of Commerce, Councilman Mark Fitzpatrick, and many others. My prayer is that you, the voter, values the track record of service and values the work done to improve our community. Brian,
Thank you very much. Mr. Hatchett, 2 minutes to close.
First off, once again, I want to thank you all for putting this together. Thank you, TJ, Jackson County GOP, and Commerce. It's good to be here tonight. My name is Bo Hatchett. I'm a Christian, conservative Republican, and I'm running because I care about this district. I love this district. I care about it because, you know, there are people all over this district that helped raise me, that poured their time and energy into me, and I want to give it back. And I want to make sure this place is a place where my daughters will be proud to say they're from, and a place where my daughters will be proud to raise their kids one day. I'm obviously, like I said, a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life. I've been endorsed by Governor Nathan Deal. I've been endorsed by Representative Terry Rogers, local sheriff Janiff Mangum, Andy Garrison, and the other candidates who we ran against. And I think it's because they know me, they know my character, they know my heart and where it is. And my heart's in Northeast Georgia. My family's in Northeast Georgia. This is where I grew up, and this is where I'll die. And I want to go down to Atlanta, and I'm going to fight for you and stand up for our Northeast Georgia values, because they're in trouble with the socialist wave that's coming out of Atlanta, and I won't give an inch. And I ask you to trust me, and I ask for your vote on August 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes our debate. This is the Georgia State Senate District 50 Republican Party runoff debate. Want to thank Jackson County Republican Party. Don't forget, early voting starts Monday, and Election Day is August 11th. And I have been your moderator tonight, Brian K. Pritchard. I want to thank Destiny Riblett and Michael Malden over there making everything happen for FYNTV.com. And we're going to take a brief break. We'll be back right close, top of the hour, 8 o'clock, with our 9th Congressional District debate between Matt Gertler and Andrew Clyde. We're out. Thank you, candidates. Good night.
Hello, I'm Senator Steve Gooch, and I'm proud to be a rock-solid conservative who has continuously voted North Georgia values on your behalf at the state capitol in Atlanta. I am a pro-life, pro-guns, pro-law enforcement, and pro-Trump Republican. The election in November is the most important in decades. We must send a strong conservative Republican back to Washington, D.C. to continue the work that our current Congressman Doug Collins has started by defending liberty, capitalism, and the America that our founding fathers created when they adopted the Bill of Rights 244 years ago. We cannot trust the Democrats to protect us with their radical left-wing liberal ideas and policies. Our country is at a turning point, and we need every Republican to come out on August the 11th to elect the best candidates running in the runoff elections for Congressional District 9 and State Senate District 50. It is imperative that every Republican vote is cast on November 3rd so that the liberals cannot destroy the republic that so many veterans have sacrificed their lives in order to preserve our freedoms. And finally, I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd to allow me to continue to fight for conservative North Georgia values at the state capitol. My name is Senator Steve Gooch, and I approve this message.
In 2013, a fellow Northeast Georgian, Andrew Clyde, experienced IRS abuse in the form of civil asset forfeiture firsthand.
I'm Andrew Clyde, combat veteran, small business owner, and Republican candidate for Congress. When the IRS unconstitutionally seized $940,000 from my armory, I took them to court and won. But when I found out that other innocent Americans were losing their small businesses to the same IRS abuse, I decided this was war. I went to Washington to testify against the IRS, and with the help of Congressman Doug Collins, we won again. On July 1st, 2019, President Trump signed our bill into law as part of the Taxpayers First Act, ensuring the corrupt IRS never did this to another American again. I'm Andrew Clyde, Republican candidate for Congress. I approve this message because when it comes to protecting our freedoms, you have to know how to fight and win.
Hello, my name's Kevin Johnson. I'm seeking the office of Chief Magistrate Judge on August the 11th. I would like to start out by thanking everyone who voted for me on June 9th. I need every one of you to vote again on August the 11th. Gilmer County has not had to elect a position in the Chief Magistrate's office in over 2 decades. This is a very important position to be filled and voted on. I would also like to encourage those who voted for other candidates to strongly consider me, review my experience in education. I have that experience and the ability to run this office. As most of you know, experience matters. My experience is that I am a retired Georgia State Patrol Post Commander with over 30 years of law enforcement experience. I have over 4,000 hours of police officer standard and training. I'm trained in courtroom testimony, courtroom procedures, arrest warrants, search warrants, and affidavits. I also have training through Columbus State University and Truett McConnell College. I have training through the FBI Leadership and Command Training Facility in Atlanta. Where this experience matters, how does it matter? As many of you know and are concerned as just as I am, a couple in St. Louis who lawfully owned and possessed weapons had them taken away from them via search warrant. That search warrant is issued from a magistrate judge. I can assure you that any arrest warrant or search warrant that is issued from the magistrate's office, as I am your Chief Magistrate Judge, will be heavily scrutinized and will be within the boundaries of the law. I will not violate somebody's constitutional rights, nor will I sign off on any warrant that does. This is where experience matters from day one, when decisions must be made and there's not enough time to review those decisions. So again, I would humbly ask in closing that you vote for me on August 11th. Vote for experience, experience that matters, experience in the law, experience in life. Vote for Kevin Johnson to be your Chief Magistrate Judge. Thank you.
This is Bo Hatchett, Republican candidate for State Senate, and I approve this message. Having been raised here, I understand that honesty, integrity, and hard work are what we expect from our elected officials. I want you to know, in Atlanta, you can count on me to defend our Northeast Georgia values. I've been certified pro-life by Georgia Life Alliance. I was honored to get the highest rating possible from the NRA for a non-politician, and I'm thankful to have the endorsement of Governor Nathan Deal. I've been a supporter of President Donald Trump since the 2016 primary, and I will fight to make sure the Trump agenda is carried out at the state level. Right now, this means getting our roaring economy going again. People all across Northeast Georgia want to get back to work. As a small business owner and political outsider, I look forward to working with Governor Kemp as he reopens and looks for new ways to expand Georgia's economy. If you have any questions at all about where I stand on an issue, please call me directly at 706-499-6941. Thank you.
Paid for by Hatchet for Georgia.
I'm June Chris, a nurse, not a career politician. Most politicians ask you to drink their Kool-Aid, but Steve Gooch is asking you to drink his leachate latte. Leachate is the toxic drainage off of landfills that has to be disposed of so that it doesn't poison the water. Recently, a citizen from Union County called me and said they would not swim or fish in their lake and they definitely wouldn't drink the water. The shocker was they said that Senator Steve Gooch was responsible for the leachate being filtered through their wastewater system. Gooch also hauls it to Dawsonville, Young Harris, and there may be other cities. Well, I'm not drinking Gooch's leachate latte, and you shouldn't either. If you're tired of unethical politicians, go to JuneChrisForGeorgia.com and volunteer and donate and vote for me on November the 3rd. And stay tuned, because there's more to come.
Live from the Commerce Civic Center, it's time to debate. This is the 9th Congressional District Republican Party runoff debate. This is a runoff election between Andrew Clyde, our candidate over here, and Matt Gertler. Early voting, folks, starts Monday, and Election Day is August 11th. We want to thank our sponsor, Jackson County Republican Party. I'm your moderator tonight, Brian K. Pritchard, and you're watching FYNTV.com. So let's start the debate with opening statements. Okay, Mr. Clyde, you have 1 minute to open.
All right. Thank you, Brian. My name is Andrew Clyde. My wife, Jennifer, and I, we live in Jackson County, where I attend Prince Avenue Baptist Church. I'm a 28-year Navy veteran with 3 combat tours and owner of Clyde Armory. As a veteran turned small business owner, I was truly living the American dream. Then everything changed. On April the 12th, 2013, the Obama IRS, without warning, wrongfully confiscated $940,000 from my firearms business through an unconstitutional process known as civil asset forfeiture. I challenged the corrupt IRS in court, where I won, but I couldn't stop there. I decided to make it my mission to ensure this never happened to a fellow American ever again. So I went to Washington to work with Congress to pass legislation eliminating the ability of the IRS to seize legally earned money. And on July 1st, 2019, President Donald Trump signed our bill into law. I never intended to run for public office, but this experience showed me there's a very fine line between we the people running our government and our government running us. This is the fight of our lifetime, and I experienced the brutality of it, so I won't back down. Again, I'm Andrew Clyde, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions, Brian.
Mr. Gertler, 1 minute to open, please.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Matt Gertler. I'm a Christian. I'm a father. I'm a husband to my wife, Marissa, and we have a daughter, Olivia, who is almost 1 year old on July 25th. I'm a home builder by trade, and I live in Rabun County. I'm a graduate of the University of North Georgia. I participated in ROTC. I'm an NRA firearms instructor. I'm a 2-term state representative, and I've been named Georgia's most conservative legislator for 4 years straight because I'm a real Republican and I lead by example. I'm the proven conservative fighter that's running in this race. I've never voted for a tax increase, and I never will. I'm 100% pro-gun and author of Constitutional Carry, which was the most pro-gun bill in the state and supported by our Governor Kemp. The only candidate that has an A rating from the NRA, also endorsed by National Association of Gun Rights, and I have a 100% pro-gun rating from Georgia gun owners. I'm 100% pro-life and co-sponsor of the Heartbeat Bill, which is one of the most pro-life bills in the nation, and author of the Life at Conception Bill. I stand with our president to put American values and principles first and foremost, cutting job-killing regulations and cutting taxes, but also importantly, bringing the troops home and having that America first foreign policy of stopping the nation building and the endless wars. I'm honored to have the endorsement of Students for Trump, as well as Senator Rand Paul and many others. You know, President Trump and the American people, they need a fighter with a proven record of beating the establishment, the lame rhino Republicans, and also the socialist Democrats. I have that proven record, and I'll be ready from day one if I'm elected to Congress. I'm the only candidate that's running this race who has the experience to combat the establishment in D.C. and actually drain the swamp, because I've been fighting them for 4 years in Atlanta. I'm the only candidate who has consistently taken the hard stands over and over, and I'm ready to stand with our president, our law enforcement, our military, and our veterans to actually bring true principles back into politics. So thank you so much, and I hope to earn your vote on August 11th.
Okay, let's start with you, Mr. Clyde. And we're going to start opening up a little bit here. We're going to talk about campaign finance and some of the money being spent in this race. Now, you, as of this morning, and I have on my screen, as of this morning, what has been reported, your total receipts are $828,632.74. As I look down and break down, you don't have an enormous amount of money coming from out of state. I've looked at that. You don't have a lot. You have a couple, but not a lot coming from out of state. But I get down to you've loaned your campaign $740,000. So could you tell the voters out there and explain it to me? What is so important and why you would invest $740,000? Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
I think that's correct.
All right. Why would you invest that much money in this campaign?
Well, I believe in it. I invest in what I believe in. That's simple.
So $740,000, you feel that strong that you want to do this, and you will use your personal money up to that number?
Yes. I mean, I believe that that we need an effective congressman in Georgia, in the 9th Congressional District. I believe that I would be the most effective congressman between the two of us running right now. And, you know, I was the last one to enter the race. And then the pandemic hit, so that kind of put me at a disadvantage when it came to raising money. So I had to make the decision. You know, do I want to invest in the race and really, you know, make a difference? And so I decided, yes, I will. You know, I've been a successful businessman. You know, most of my business has been in North Georgia. Selling firearms to the customers in our store for the last 20 years. So, you know, I think we as Republicans celebrate success, and it allows us to move the conservative agenda forward. And I mean, I believe in conservative agenda, so I put my money where my beliefs are.
You response to that as far as the investment he's made in his campaign to that number?
Yeah, it's completely opposite of my campaign. I have grassroots support. We have raised over $600,000, and most of, well, a lot of it actually is from small donations. We'll nearly have $90,000 from small donations, and that is from $200 or less. So that really is a huge difference between me and my opponent, because we're fueled by grassroots. We have a grassroots campaign, and we, you know, we can't afford to buy an election. Every single vote has to be earned in this election. I'm a home builder by trade. I'm blue collar. I actually loaned myself $7,000. I haven't even touched it. So I need to, I'm like a 97% from small donations, and also donations from all over the place, honestly. All 50 states at this point, because the message of liberty and freedom is ubiquitous. And so that's a huge difference between our campaigns. And, you know, I see where you say you get your money, but I'd like to know, how do you have over $3 million in government contracts, including from the IRS, that you claim to be against?
respond to that.
Sure.
Directly, so.
I would absolutely like to respond to that. First off, my opponent says that the vast majority of his money is from individual contributions, but what he doesn't tell you is that most of that is from out of state. It's not from here in Georgia. It comes from out of state. So, I mean, that's a vast difference between our campaigns, too. My money comes from in-state. More of his money comes from out of state than in-state. Sure, I'll tell you about my contracts with the government. We have what's called Clyde Armory has been a successful business, and Clyde Armory has what's called a General Services Administration contract, a GSA contract. In that contract, and it actually took us about 3 years to earn that. We've had that contract for a few years, but we provide product to the United States government and to legitimate state governments. We cannot discriminate. Every agency of the government, like the Secret Service, like every branch of the military, they all get to buy off of it, and I can't discriminate who buys and who doesn't.
What say you to Mr. Gertler saying he can't, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to say what you're implying, but there's only two candidates here. He can't buy an election.
Well, I think that's offensive, because I didn't know that any voters in the 9th District have their votes up for sale. My vote's not up for sale. I don't expect anyone else's vote to be up for sale. So I don't think it's possible to buy an election.
Obviously,
I'd like to respond a little.
You can respond. You can respond.
I just, here in the North Georgia mountains, if you say that you're against the IRS, and you've said this your whole campaign, you're against the IRS, you fought and you won against them, but you're taking money from them. In the North Georgia mountains, we call that hypocrisy. And having the amount of money that it takes to run a congressional campaign is extremely hard. On the phones all the time, trying to get the money and the resources you need. If you have $750,000 to dump into an election, why are you doing this? And with those government contracts, you say you put your money where your beliefs are. Then why did you donate to the former Democratic caucus chairman that was on a leadership team with Stacey Abrams?
Would you like to respond to that, sir?
Yeah, actually I would. I sure would. In fact, that's an awesome story, and I'd love to tell it. It's a story of what happens when God changes people's lives. And he's talking about Doug McKillop, who incidentally experienced a change in his life when he accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. When that happened to him, his life completely changed. He went from being a Democrat to being a Republican, and not just a Republican, but a courageously pro-life Republican. In fact, you will see that the current pro-life legislation in the state of Georgia was authored by him. And without his leadership, it never would have passed the Georgia Assembly in 2012. So when Doug McKillop was a Republican, that's when I contributed $1,000 to his campaign. So, we celebrate changed lives. And I think Doug McKillop is an outstanding example of that.
All right, let me go with this. We'll stay on this. You can respond. Yeah. But you can respond. I want to stay on this, okay? Because we asked about his 740. So you have invested what I see, $740,000 at this time of your own money. Mm-hmm. Successful in business, it's what you believe in, okay? Mm-hmm. You have pointed out government contracts. Even, do you have a contract with the IRS?
We have a General Services Administration.
General Services.
Right.
So anybody in the government can buy because you've met the criteria to sell?
That's correct.
That's
correct. That is absolutely correct.
Just want to get an understanding.
Right. So the Secret Service can buy from it, the Park Police can buy from it, the U.S. Marshals, every branch of the military can buy from it, and I cannot discriminate who buys from the contract. If you discriminate, then you're not going to have a contract with the federal government. And any state government can buy from it too. It's called a GSA schedule, General Services Administration.
We don't have to leave this subject for a couple reasons. We got a lot to get done tonight, but the voters of the 9th District want to make sure that whoever is elected represents them.
Absolutely.
So we'll say that. Now let's go. You will have a chance to respond to anything he just said, but I want to go with this because I did go through yours line item by line item. And what I have right now, as of this morning, 34.3% is out-of-state contributions, $139,731. You have received contributions from 34 states, including D.C., which is Club for Growth, that come up, okay? Now, I just want to say this. I'm going to point out a couple things, and then you can talk about where your contributions come from. D.C. was 12,000, but California, 13,850 have come from California, okay? And I just want to highlight just a couple. 16,700 from Florida, okay? An enormous amount from Mississippi and Nevada, okay? Now, one last thing, and you can comment on your contributions, all right? You've received $5,600 from Thomas Massey's PAC, right? Congressman Thomas Massey.
That's correct.
Correct, right? And you've received, and he's in Kentucky. You've received from the Republican Liberty Caucus Political Action Committee out in San Diego, California. So he has invested $740,000 of his own money in his campaign, which I guess is in Georgia. You have gone outside of the district. Who are these people? Can you explain to the citizens your campaign contributions?
I'd first like to respond back to what my opponent said. You know, if Doug McKillop was a Republican, why is he still giving to Democrats? He's given tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats, and including Stacey Evans that was running for governor just in the last cycle, and that's a pro-choice socialist. And so I'd just like to point that out. And you've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to people over the years, including some Rhino Republicans like Paul Ryan, who was a never-Trumper and stopped the repeal of Obamacare. Now I can talk about my thing. I just want to defend that. Now,
I'll give you a chance to answer that in a minute.
All right.
You can respond to that. All right, let's talk about your
Yeah.
campaign finance,
Yeah.
some of the things that we've highlighted.
You know, like I said, freedom and liberty is ubiquitous. We saw this is the people are tired of status quo politicians. They're tired of Rhino Republicans. They want people to actually go to D.C. and represent them. And being a state rep for 4 years, I had created national attention across the United States because of my record. It was unparalleled and it's unmatched. And so when I announced for Congress, people got excited. They got excited. And we have, I didn't know the specific number, you said 34% out of state. You know, they believe in me, and they're donating to me because they want someone to go to D.C. like Thomas Massey, like Senator Rand Paul, who both endorsed me, to actually do the right thing and uphold the Constitution when so many others don't. They go to D.C. and they compromise. And so having that movement, that national movement, just in less than 4 years of being a state representative, has garnered me a lot of national attention to actually garner that support. You know, I've only been able to raise about $50,000 in my state rep campaigns, even though I was outspent 2-1, and the establishment was coming after me hardcore in every election. And so when I announced for Congress, a lot of people didn't think I could do it. But I came in first place in a 9-way primary. That really goes to show that the people of the 9th District want a true, proven conservative fighter up in D.C. to actually go to D.C. and represent them, and not any conflicts of interest, not any special interest, and just represent the people. I talk to people every single day, and that's what they say. They want people to actually represent them. I'm just a regular guy. I'm a home builder. Like I said, I can't afford to loan myself $750,000. This is my campaign is a movement by the people and it's grassroots. That's a huge difference in this campaign.
I understand that. Texas, $23,550. I mean, who is doing most of the fundraising for you on these out-of-state?
This is all me. I'm just
you?
calling people. Yeah,
Okay.
I call every single day.
I got it.
Yeah.
Would you like to respond to his campaign finance that we're discussing?
Sure. You know, I think I'm being vilified for self-funding, but you know, and that's being called grassroots. Well, there's another candidate, I think, that initially self-funded his race and had a lot of grassroots support, and I think it turned out pretty well for him. And his name's, right now, President Donald Trump. So I think self-funding is not a problem if you can self-fund a campaign. You know, we're reaching out to people too, and we're getting lots of donations as well. But when I started this campaign, I didn't have huge name recognition. And I'm working on name recognition, and that's coming up right now. So that's where we are.
Well, I want to move to another subject, but I think a lot of people have called me over the past several days, and a lot of people have asked you guys about why you're self-funding and that amount of money, and where your campaign contribution. Would you like to respond, or?
I think it's just out of touch. I mean, we talk about this is a rural district where we're at in 9th District, and when I talk to people all the time, and they hear about your self-funding, they say, man, that's incredible. They can't relate to you at all. And they can relate to me because I'm just a regular guy. I just build homes up in Rabun County. I got involved in politics for the right reasons. I haven't been able to, try to buy influence through people and donate to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to people over the years. I got involved in this when I was about 22 years old because I love my country and I was trying to do the right thing and bring principles back into politics. That's why we got support from all those states. That's why we've gotten so much donations from small donors. And we have nearly 18 more times than my opponent through small donations, which is about $90,000 compared to, I think, 5,000, if I'm not correct, if I'm incorrect on that, but it's about 5,000, I think, something like that. But that means a lot. When you get a $10 bill, I had $2 come in the other day, $2 come into a mailbox the other day. And that means a lot to me. It's like a little blessing each time. And they really believe in what we're doing, and they want young, conservative, proven conservative fighters in there to take our country back. And those ideas that I espouse, it's freedom's ubiquitous. People love it.
30 seconds response, and then I want to ask another question on the campaign finance.
Sure, absolutely. First off, to be challenged for giving to the Speaker of the House, all right, the responsibility of the Speaker of the House is to make sure that we maintain a Republican majority. That's what we need, is a Republican majority. When we don't have a Republican majority, we get ridiculous things like impeachment of a president. Then the Democrats take over, all right? That's wrong. So do I give to Republicans? Yes. But, Matt, I don't know where you get your numbers. It's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think you owe Doug McKillop an apology, truly, because what you said about his donations to Democrats, I think that's completely untrue.
All right, we've
done our homework, and it's all true.
Okay.
But going back to what you're saying about
30 seconds with
status, if you're donating to Republican status quo takers, these water carriers, I've only donated to a handful of people in my life, maybe less than 10, including Donald Trump, because I believe in them. But I always have a high criteria if I ever donate to somebody, because I know how easy people compromise. There's no way I would ever donate to a status quo carrier, and especially a never-Trumper like Paul Ryan, who basically blocked the repeal of Obamacare. That doesn't help anything. The Republicans ran on limited government, small government, and when they got control of the House, the Senate, and then President Trump took over, they didn't do anything. The legislative body did not repeal Obamacare, and that's the epitome of the corruption that we're facing in Washington, D.C. It's the epitome of the corruption I've been facing at the state capitol by fighting against the establishment, and that's what I'll do.
All right, you have had this question many times, and we're going to have to ask it again tonight, and I know you've answered it several times. The 9th Congressional District currently is represented by Congressman Doug Collins in the district, okay? Whoever wins, obviously, is going to replace and take that seat. You said, I think, quote, because I didn't write it down, you are honored to receive the endorsement of the Club for Growth. You've used Never Trumper several times tonight. The Club for Growth is on record not being very flattering to the President of the United States. Okay, correct me where I'm wrong. And obviously now they're spending millions of dollars against Congressman Doug Collins. So in this 9th District, you have taken a lot of support from the Club for Growth. What say you if out there people are saying your money's 34%, and I'm just going to throw it out there, like 23,000 is out of Texas. What do they expect from Congressman Matt Gertler? No, I mean, right? I mean, come on. So what say you for Club for Growth, anti-Trump?
Well, no one can buy me. They're not going to buy me. Club for Growth, they've also praised our president as well. Just recently, in the last couple of weeks, about his job, cutting regulations and cutting taxes. So it goes both ways. I was in D.C. the same time my opponent was meeting with Club for Growth, and my opponents attacked me on this and said that, they attacked Doug Collins and this and that. But I was in the same, right before in D.C. I was in D.C. with the same day, right after the meeting where my opponent was as well, and he was asking for their endorsement as well. I just got it because I'm the proven conservative fighter, because they believe in free markets, and those are the big issues for them, and I've been the most free market state representative. And, you know, I was attacked by my opponent as well about this very same thing you're talking about, that Club for Growth maybe attacked Doug Collins. But my opponent has staffers working for him right now that are actively running a smear campaign against Doug Collins. And I'd like you to address that too if you want to.
Would you like to comment on that?
I have nothing to do with that whatsoever. So I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Does Jordan Cheneth not work for Kelly Loeffler?
I don't know anything about that,
That's your
Matt.
main guy. That's your consultant.
I don't know
He's
anything
here.
about
He's
that,
somewhere
Matt.
around here.
Okay.
It's on the website.
I will tell you that Doug Collins is a great friend of mine, and he has helped me significantly. And you know, he helped me pass this legislation, the Clyde Hirsch-Sowers Respect Act, that took away the authority of the IRS. And actually, if you take a look at my ad that's called Fight and Win, you'll see Congressman Collins is featured starting that ad out, telling my story on the House floor. So he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Okay, I want to move to another subject. During your time in the Georgia House of Representatives, you have had several different names, one being Dr. No, correct? A couple
correct.
times.
That's right.
Been referred to as Dr. No. Now, because you do have a voting record, I want to bring this up, and then the two of you can talk, because what I really want to get into this is being an effective congressman in Washington, D.C. and getting things done. So you know some of the critics out there. I want to bring up three particular ones in your career at the House. And you can address each one. Now, I don't want to take 2 minutes for each one, but you can address each one. H.R. 882 opened the Georgia Assembly legislative session this year. A resolution recognizing and condemning President, commending, sorry about that, folks, Donald Trump. H.R. 882, a resolution recognizing and commending President Donald Trump and the brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces and intelligence agencies on a successful military operation that neutralized Soleimani, joined by Democrats. It was voted 93 to 68, joined by Democrats in opposition to the resolution, Matt Gertler. Now, this was a comment you made on a radio station on Interview. Trump violated the Constitution by eliminating Soleimani, and his principles your principles would not permit you to vote for the resolution. Would you like to clear that up, or was it an unconstitutional act by the President of the United States?
Well, I think this is the same establishment tactics that my opponent's using against me. It's a smear campaign, and I did vote no. That's one thing he did get right. I did vote no against that. It was because, and we had a personal conversation about this, it's because it codifies language with the United Nations and also praises the failed foreign policy of George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And that's not an America First foreign policy. That's where I agree with the President at. And I asked my opponent this as well, because he does not believe in the United Nations. He said it publicly. I do not agree with the United Nations. And so I had to take a hard stand on that. And I didn't join the Democrats. I joined with the Constitution. And I don't think Trump himself would even voted for this bill, because he constantly criticized George W. Bush and Barack Obama throughout his campaign in 2016, consistently. And he wanted a America First foreign policy. He wanted to bring the troops home. He wanted to stop the nation building and stop the endless wars. But I've asked my opponent this: if he's against the United Nations, then you should have voted no against this bill as well. And if you're not willing to say that, then you're not willing to take the hard stands of what it takes, because that's a principled vote. You know, language in bills, I would have voted for that resolution if it simply said I support Trump and the troops, because I do. The smear campaign that my opponent's running against me is untrue. I support Trump, I support the troops. He knows this, but continues to go out there and tell the voters through disgusting lies and propaganda that I don't support Trump and the troops when I do. The reason I voted against it is because it shows two things: the United Nations and the failed foreign policy of George W. Bush. So I'd like to know, are you willing to take the hard stands? If you don't agree with the United Nations, then you shouldn't vote no to that.
Mr. Clyde, you don't have a voting record, but he has asked you if you were in the same position, would you have voted for the bill?
For the resolution?
According to the way that Mr. Gertler framed the reason why he did not, would you have voted resolution?
Resolution,
I apologize.
right, it's not a bill.
Not a bill.
Okay.
Apologize.
All right. I would never have voted with the Democrats against President Trump and then said what President Trump did was unconstitutional. When you say something's unconstitutional, you say it's illegal. That means what you're saying is what President Trump did was illegal, therefore what our military did as an extension of what the chief executive orders, what the military did then was illegal. That's absolutely wrong. My opponent does not understand the concept of what war actually is. This was a sole terrorist who had the blood of over 600 service members to his credit. All right? This was the most evil terrorist in the entire world. President Trump had actionable intelligence that this particular terrorist was planning an operation to execute against our embassy and make it look like another Benghazi. And absolutely the right decision was to take him out and take him out as fast as he possibly could. So I commend the Georgia legislature for this resolution. I would have certainly voted for it, and I would not have voted against it. My opponent simply doesn't understand what an act of war is. The attack on Pearl Harbor was an act of war. All right? Taking out a sole terrorist is not an act of war, and that's why one of the reasons my opponent does not need to go to Congress to represent our district.
Let me ask you, I want you to respond, but I want you to, I will, but I want to ask you this. Have you said at any time you didn't support taking out Soleimani?
No, I never said that. I think that Soleimani should be dead.
Okay.
He should be dead. He's an evil person. But you never answered the question. Well, you did. I guess you said you would have voted for it.
Absolutely.
And that means you're not willing to take the hard stance, because then how can you say you're against the United Nations and then vote for something that codifies language in the state legislature for that specific reason? That's what means taking a hard stand, Clyde. And the Constitution, you have to follow every bit of it. It's Article 1, Section 8. That is the power of war and going to war. And I don't think you understand that at all. You have to follow every bit of the Constitution. You can't just pick and choose. This is what the problem was with Washington, D.C. This is the problem in the state capitol. People pick and choose what they want to follow in the Constitution to fit their own agendas. And that's the problem. We haven't had a real constitutional war since World War II. We've been nation building in endless wars for far too long. People are fed up with it. The 9th District and the people agree with me on this. They want to bring our troops home. Trump agrees with me on this. And that's the only thing we have to do. We have to lead by example. And I've done that for 4 years, and I have the proven conservative voting record to back it up. It's the most conservative voting record in the state. This is the most conservative voting district in the United States, third most, and the most in Georgia as well. So my campaign is right in line with the values and principles up here in the mountains.
And I think, I think the people of the 9th District would overwhelmingly agree that what the Georgia legislature did was correct, and that what Representative Gertler did was not correct.
I want to move to one more.
I disagree with that.
I want to move to one more. Okay, and there's 3 out of your career down at the House that I want to look at. This is also one for this session here. House Bill 838. It's known to be the Peace Officers' Bill of Rights. You did not vote on that. You were not present when that bill came to the floor for a vote. Why not?
Yeah, I've answered this question probably in the last 4 debates, and I support law enforcement. What I think is disgusting, though, is photoshopping pictures of me when I'm not at the Capitol. No one would, Clyde, well, you weren't even there. We recessed at noon. I left to go talk to people in Franklin County to understand their needs and return back to the Capitol. You know, when you see these attacks like this, that's why people are disgusted with politics. And when it comes to the bill, now I support law enforcement 100%. I support any bill, including this bill, that would uphold the Constitution and life, liberty, and property. And I'll stand by that. But, to say that, I walked out on the vote, I've never walked on a vote. I have one of the highest voting attendance records in the state. Now, people miss votes sometimes, There's not a sitting member of Congress right now who has not missed a vote. Not one of them. I don't like it, but to put out fake Photoshop things and say that, and try to tarnish my name and smear my campaign when I have the most conservative voting record in the state, that's not right whatsoever.
You saying the photo that shows you at the Capitol during the time of the vote was photoshopped?
Yes, I left at noon, and I got back probably around 3 hours later back to the chamber to make it in time for the hate crimes bill, which came up probably at 4 o'clock.
Okay. All right, so you did not vote on that bill.
No, I did not vote
on that bill, and you say the photo is photoshopped of you being at the Capitol.
Someone's sneaking around.
Okay.
And, you know, President Trump this is fake news. He would say it was fake news, and it's just, it's unbelievable.
Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Clyde?
Sure, it is not a Photoshop photo at all. It's an iPhone Live photo, and it does have a timestamp on it, Matt. So
You said that
I reject that argument right there. You know, if you could vote on the hate crimes bill, then you could certainly vote on the Peace Officers Bill of Rights, HB 838. You know, and because you're unwilling to do that, in fact, actually, you know what? I think the people of Georgia deserve to know how you would have voted on that bill, yay or nay.
I just answered that. I said yes. I would support any bill that would support the Constitution and support our law enforcement.
Okay.
Okay. I want to move to one more, and I'll tell you why I want to move to this one, because, you know, with currently what's happening with China and many of the things taking place, we had a trade deal. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, had a trade deal with China to buy a certain amount of our agricultural products in this country. Farmers have been, it's been very volatile in the last several years with farmers and, you know, selling product, their grain across over to China. My point is, there's a lot of different bills that the President has put up and things have happened to support farmers, okay? And I want to go with this one right here. It is from the Valdosta Times, okay? The lone lawmaker who opposed the spending package. Now, apparently you were the only one. The spending package for hurricane recovery has drawn an ire from South Georgia lawmakers. Citing his conservative principles, Matt Gertler was the only lawmaker to oppose a plan to add $270 million to this year's budget to help rebuild Southwest Georgia after Hurricane Michael ravaged the area. Quote, I understand where the farmers in South Georgia, they understand where I'm coming from, Gertler said in an interview with Fetcher News, an online news outlet in North Georgia, referring to his Southwest Georgia colleagues. You voted no on that, and not to go back, but that was a relief package that affected the farmers in Georgia. Could you tell us once again why you were the lone representative to vote no on that, and then go into if the similar package comes up in Washington, D.C. for our farmers across this country?
Right. Well, thanks for the question. Yeah, we interviewed on that.
Yes.
A couple years ago. And, you know, if you look at the bill and you read it, and that's why I've been able to take the hard stands. We have a rainy day for a reason in Georgia. We have over $2.5 billion specifically for things like this, and it literally was a rainy day. And we didn't touch it. We continued to add more debt through subsidies and things like that, and we shouldn't have done that. We should have taken the rainy day fund and used the money specifically for that. And no one was willing to vote no because they knew the political ramifications of it, and they didn't want to lose their seats. And so everybody had to vote yes, they thought. But we should have had more people that were willing to take the stands, but unfortunately we did not. But that's why I voted no, because we have that money there for a reason. But if we don't touch it, what's the point?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Would you like to respond to that, and then we'll move on to another question?
I'd just like to ask him if the same disaster would have happened up here in the 9th District, would he have had the same response?
We're going to have to read the bill. It's theoretical. I mean, look at COVID-19, the stimulus packages. 75% of the bills had nothing to do with the coronavirus. So if that bill came up, I would have voted no to it. But, you know, theoretics and throwing out things like that, well, if it's the same type of disaster, and you have to look at the bills before you can actually make a decision on and read them. Not enough people read the bills at all. You think you know this, Brian, being at the Capitol all the time. It's just they're expected to be pushed through, much like the budget in Georgia, which I've taken hard stands on, and been the only Republican in 4 years to actually vote against those budgets and speak against them. The only Republican to do that in 4 years consistently, because they're omnibus, it's corrupt, it's just like Washington, D.C., but no one's willing to take the hard stands, and the Democrats and the Rhino Republicans all go along with everything, and they just grow government and add debt. There's about $1.5 billion of debt added to Georgians every single year, and no Republicans are willing to take the hard stands, but I've taken those hard stands over and over again because I'm a proven conservative. And that's what we're running on. I'm tested by the establishment. They come after me consistently, just like our president. They attack me consistently. My family's been through smear campaign after smear campaign after smear campaign, just like my opponent's doing to me now, trying to win an election. It's disgusting. I hate politics because of this reason, and I think that's why people hate politics so much, and they hate politicians so much, is because they lie all the time. And they deceive the people, and they don't actually represent the people. They represent themselves, they represent the lobbyist, and they represent the Speaker of the House, or they represent the chairman, and they don't actually do what they say they're going to do. I've done what I said I was going to do for 4 years straight, and that's why my record speaks for itself. I'm the only Republican in Georgia that's just never actually even voted for a tax increase. Yet every single buddy that goes down to all the Republicans sign a pledge to say, I won't increase taxes, that they all vote for them, every one of them.
Would you like to respond?
Yes, my opponent did not answer my question. I said if the exact same bill, you said you had to read the bill. Well, you had a chance to read the bill. If the exact same bill were for a disaster here in North Georgia, would he have voted the same?
It's an illegitimate question. You know, if you really look at what's happening here, you know, you're trying to put me into a pigeonhole and saying, well, you would just disaster relief about the whole 9th district. It's a ridiculous question.
Okay, let's move to the next. Okay, we spent a whole lot of money here in the last little bit, in trillions and trillions of dollars, and you know, Mr. Gertler has brought up several times hard stance. So can you, and I'm going to give you something in a minute, but could you see yourself in Washington, D.C., with the media saying you're the only congressman that voted no because of a principle or a hard stance? Would you actually make that commitment that you would? How will you judge your vote constitutionally? What can the people out there expect from Andrew Clyde as far as how you'll make a judgment on how you vote for a bill or spend more money or anything in D.C.?
Oh, absolutely, I can make the hard stance. And not only can I make the hard stance, I can do it with my own money. And a perfect example of that is the fight with the IRS. That was a hard stance. That was a fight that said, all right, you know, they took my money, I took them to court, I took my money back. But I didn't stop there. I said, all right, I'm not going to allow this to happen to any other American citizen. So I went to Washington, D.C., and it cost me money to do that. And I testified against the IRS. I testified against somebody, an agency that can literally destroy you. Probably the 3 most feared words in the federal government are Internal Revenue Service. And I testified against them. And as a result of that testimony, a bill was crafted that removed the authority of the IRS to ever confiscate legally earned money again, saving hundreds of businesses and hundreds of individuals from wrongful prosecution every year. So absolutely I can stand. And I will stand on the Constitution because civil asset forfeiture is unconstitutional.
Well, let me ask you this, because you know, I have known Representative Gertler for several years, and when I ask him, why did you vote this way, I can get a list from him on his checklist on what he does to vote. Agree or disagree, I can always count that he gives me that checklist. What are some of the checklists that you would use as a criteria when something comes on the floor that will determine how you vote?
Well, I think it's my conservative principles, my upbringing, that tells me what's right and what's wrong. The Constitution itself is absolutely the bedrock of law for us. But you also have to be able to work with people and you have to have a seat at the table in order to move the conservative agenda forward. You know, as a congressman, you're 1 out of 435 people. So that means you're less than 1/4% of the Congress. To get something passed requires 218 votes. That means, so now you're up to 1/2%. If you don't have a seat at the table where other congressmen, those other 217, will listen to you and you can actually influence their decisions, then nothing will ever happen. You will never move the conservative agenda forward. And I commit to the people of the 9th District that I will be able to move, I will be effective, and I will be able to move the conservative agenda forward. You know, I've had a very successful business for the last 20 years, and the success of that business has been based upon my ability to work with others and make hard decisions. And I think that's proof right there that I can do that for the 9th District.
He brought up effective. So that being said, and I did, you know, Mr. Gertler, all the times we've talked in the past, in any interview I've heard you explain your reasoning immediately for principled, you know, conservative, constitutional, you know, you list out. But in your time at the Georgia State House, how many bills have you not just sponsored, how many bills have you introduced that have come up for a vote, and as a representative for your constituents in your district, have you come through with, how many do you have that have passed?
Well, the biggest one's the heartbeat bill.
But not to interrupt you, but you're a co-sponsor on that. You're not the lead. Am I correct? Or if I'm wrong?
Not the lead, but we, me and Ed Setzler, who's endorsed our campaign.
Okay.
You know, this is talking about effectiveness, how to get things done. You know, if you're getting the wrong things done, you shouldn't get anything done. So how we can be effective, even though we're a small minority of true conservatives at the Capitol, we would push the issues and would be loud and bold down at the Capitol, even when there's so much corruption going on. And, you know, this comes down to heartbeat bill. It comes down to constitutional carry. The heartbeat bill only passed because a small group of people were very urgent about that, and they were pushing the agenda, including Ed Setzler, myself. You know, when Governor Kemp got elected, I authored the Life at Conception bill. The establishment found out, and they came to me and they said, let's work together. Ed Setzler called me and said, let's work together. And we started working on that because we knew that we could actually get some conservative things done finally, because we had a pro-life governor finally, even despite the establishment not willing to work with us. But we were loud and we were bold and we pushed it through. And it only passed by 1 vote. And I think this is where people are, you know, fed up with Republicans, where they don't actually go on the offensive. You know, I was only 1 of 5 Republicans to actually speak in favor of the bill when 20 Democrats railed against it on the House floor, and it passed by 1 vote. People walked out of the chamber, they were nowhere to be found, yet we have 105 Republicans and 91 votes it takes to pass. And so it was just, if you're going to be an effective congressman in a corrupt environment, you have to be loud, you have to be bold, and you have to stand on principle to move that needle to the right more. You know, the left does this all the time. Look at AOC. She is absolutely crazy and always far to the left you can get, but she pushes her agenda by doing that. You know, if we want the right to go back to be Republicans, you got to have people to take stands like I've been doing. You got to have people to be loud and bold and actually uphold their constitutional oaths. And that's what I've done, and that's what I'll continue to do. But I find it funny that an opponent mentions the IRS again. How in the world can you keep saying about the IRS if you're taking money from the IRS right now? How is that not hypocrisy?
I want to give you an opportunity
$3 million
to respond.
in
I'm
contracts.
Sorry. I want to give you an opportunity to respond, and I know you've already made that point once already, and I don't want to not give you a chance to say that. But let's go back to this. The voters out there, can you be an effective congressman for the 9th Congressional District? Can you go up there? Can you tell us what caucus you would join? And can you tell the voters, I will be an effective congressman for the 9th District. I will get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's why we're successful in our House reps re-elections, even despite all the establishment attacks, despite the establishment spending 2-to-1 against me. The people were always behind me because I represent the people. We got over 60% of the vote, despite the corrupt speaker coming up and the governor coming up. Nathan Deal came up and campaigned against us, first time in Georgia history. We still got 60% of the vote because I represent the people. And I'll do that the same way. If I'm a congressman, you have to represent the people. I'll be an effective congressman for the 9th District by upholding their rights and protecting life, liberty, and property, and taking the hard stands like Congressman Thomas Massie did just a few months ago when he had to take the hard stand to keep Congress accountable to have their votes recorded. That's what we're talking about. It's so much corruption. And when Donald Trump talks about the swamp, he's not joking, and it's everywhere. It's in the state capitals, it's in the federal government, and we need fighters to stand with him against the fake news, the Socialist Democrats, and the Rhino Republicans. And those people, it only takes a small group of people. Jim Jordan, Andy Biggs, Senator Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie. These types of people, it's only a small group of them. So the caucuses you're referring to, like the Freedom Caucus, the Second Amendment Caucus, those are great groups. I want to align with those groups.
You would caucus with them?
Yes, I think that they're some of the best leaders we have in Washington, D.C. because they try to lead by example. They have proven records. And that's what sets me apart from my opponent is I actually have a record of doing these things. People get involved for the right reasons. I've actually recruited some people to come to the state capitol, and they run and they win. And then when you get down there, they change. 99% of them. I came within the class with 17 people. Out of 16 people, they all compromised. And they all became a part of the swamp. They all justified the bad votes, and now they're a part of the swamp, and they have terrible voting records. There's no way they could ever run for Congress because they sold out, and everybody does it. People are tired of people going to D.C. and the state capitals and doing that.
Thomas Massie, though, what you're referring to a couple weeks ago did upset the president to the point the president made a comment that Thomas Massie should be kicked out of the Republican Party. He did. Right? But you brought that up, right?
Yeah.
You brought that up. And he stood on that. So are you prepared, not to give you a chance, but you brought that up at Thomas Massie, which his PAC did donate $5,600 to your campaign, and he did that. He upset the president, and the president made that statement. So could you see somewhere, would vote somewhere that maybe the next day you could be on the president's Twitter list and not in a good way?
Who knows?
Are you looking forward to the first tweet? Both of you. Give both of you a chance. The first tweet that has your name in it with real Donald Trump goes for both of you.
I think it comes down to the separation of powers. Article 1 is separation of powers. It's the duty of the legislative body to make law and the executive to approve of those laws or veto those laws. And when it comes to Thomas Massie, he did get some flack for that, but the people support him. He just won his re-election by 85% in the primary. 85%. That goes to tell you, people want fighters like Thomas. They want fighters like me, like Senator Rand Paul. Those people, because the people are fed up with the status quo. And now, he got criticized by the president, but I think that Thomas is one of the best leaders we have in D.C. because he does stand on principle every time. And that's the key. Consistency is the key.
Okay, would you like to respond? But I also, part of that is I would like to know who you would caucus with if elected in Washington, D.C.
I would certainly caucus with the Freedom Caucus. I believe that would be the right thing to do. In fact, Congressman Jody Hice, the lone Freedom Caucus member of the Georgia delegation, has endorsed me for my candidacy. In fact, Congressman Hice said of me is that Andrew Clyde has done more as a private citizen to further the cause of freedom than most sitting politicians in their entire political careers. So he understands that I'm a courageous conservative. He understands that I have the courage to fight the establishment, to fight the Socialist Democrats in Washington, D.C., and to stand up for what's right, to stand up for our Constitution just like Congressman Hice does, which is why why I have his endorsement and my opponent does not. Now, also, I'd like to address the fact that my opponent continues to rail on me with fake news about a contract with the IRS. That just goes to show you that my opponent has no concept of business whatsoever. This is a General Services Administration contract. It's a contract open to every agency of the federal government. And when you have a GSA contract, then you cannot discriminate between agencies, who you sell to and who you don't. This is a contract that offers optics and binoculars and spare parts, etc., to the federal government. It's competitively bid. And so, the government comes to people who they can trust and who know will give them a fair value for the price they pay. And we worked hard 3 years to earn this contract, this particular contract, and we've had this for a number of years. So to say that it's hypocrisy absolutely shows that my opponent has no understanding of how business works, especially business in the federal government. How can you say you'll be a good congressman when you don't understand business, especially business with the federal government?
All right, that's going to have to take us to break. We're going to take a brief 3-minute break. When we come back, we're going to get into some foreign policy, and it's going to be some rapid fire answers just to get where both of these candidates stand on issues. We won't have a lot of time for back and forth in our second segment, but we do want to get their stance on several issues. And then we want to get to our candidate question, where they get to ask each other a question, and our closing statement tonight. So we'll be right back after this brief 3 minutes.
In 2013, a fellow Northeast Georgian, Andrew Clyde, experienced IRS abuse in the form of civil asset forfeiture firsthand.
I'm Andrew Clyde, combat veteran, small business owner, and Republican candidate for Congress. When the IRS unconstitutionally seized $940,000 from my armory, I took them to court and won. But when I found out that other innocent Americans were losing their small businesses to the same IRS abuse, I decided this was war. I went to Washington to testify against the IRS, and with the help of Congressman Doug Collins, we won again. On July 1st, 2019, President Trump signed our bill into law as part of the Taxpayers First Act, ensuring the corrupt IRS never did this to another American again. I'm Andrew Clyde, Republican candidate for Congress. I approve this message because when it comes to protecting our freedoms, you have to know how to fight and win.
Hello, my name's Kevin Johnson. I'm seeking the office of Chief Magistrate Judge on August the 11th. I would like to start out by thanking everyone who voted for me on June 9th. I need every one of you to vote again on August the 11th. Gilmer County has not had to elect a position in the Chief Magistrate's office in over 2 decades. This is a very important position to be filled and voted on. I would also like to encourage those who voted for other candidates to strongly consider me, review my experience in education. I have that experience and the ability to run this office. As most of you know, experience matters. My experience is that I am a retired Georgia State Patrol Post Commander with over 30 years of law enforcement experience. I have over 4,000 hours of police officer standard and training. I'm trained in courtroom testimony, courtroom procedures, arrest warrants, search warrants, and affidavits. I also have training through Columbus State University and Truett McConnell College. I have training through the FBI Leadership and Command Training Facility in Atlanta. Where this experience matters, how does it matter? As many of you know and are concerned as just as I am, a couple in St. Louis who lawfully owned and possessed weapons had them taken away from them via search warrant. That search warrant is issued from a magistrate judge. I can assure you that any arrest warrant or search warrant that is issued from the magistrate's office, as I am your chief magistrate judge, will be heavily scrutinized and will be within the boundaries of the law. I will not violate somebody's constitutional rights, nor will I sign off on any warrant that does. This is where experience matters from day one, when decisions must be made and there's not enough time to review those decisions. So again, I would humbly ask in closing that you vote for me on August 11th. Vote for experience, experience that matters, experience in the law, experience in life. Vote for Kevin Johnson to be your Chief Magistrate Judge. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Senator Steve Gooch, and I'm proud to be a rock-solid conservative who has continuously voted North Georgia values on your behalf at the state capitol in Atlanta. I am a pro-life, pro-guns, pro-law enforcement, and pro-Trump Republican. The election in November is the most important in decades. We must send a strong conservative Republican back to Washington, D.C. to continue the work that our current Congressman Doug Collins has started by defending liberty, capitalism, and the America that our founding fathers created when they adopted the Bill of Rights 244 years ago. We cannot trust the Democrats to protect us with their radical left-wing liberal ideas and policies. Our country is at a turning point, and we need every Republican to come out on August the 11th to elect the best candidates running in the runoff elections for Congressional District 9 and State Senate District 50. It is imperative that every Republican vote is cast on November 3rd so that the liberals cannot destroy the republic that so many veterans have sacrificed their lives in order to preserve our freedoms. And finally, I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd to allow me to continue to fight for conservative North Georgia values at the state capitol. My name is Senator Steve Gooch, and I approve this message.
And we're back. I am your moderator tonight, Brian K. Pritchard. You're watching FYNTV.com. We appreciate it. This is the 9th Congressional District debate between Andrew Clyde and Matt Gertler. Early voting starts Monday, and August 11th is Election Day. This is a runoff between these two candidates. This is the Republican Party, and we want to thank Jackson County Republican Party for sponsoring the debate. Gentlemen, in the first half, my intention was, I hear, and I think both of you know that, I hear most everything concerning the campaigns. The people out there hear the radio ads, the TV ads, accusations, I'll just put it like that. And in the first half, I wanted to get both of you, from campaign finance to campaign ads, to be able to discuss that back and forth. At this time, in the effort of time, and I know you would stay and talk to voters, because I know how you are, but I did make you a promise this morning on the phone we wouldn't go 3 hours. Okay? So, huh?
Like last time.
Yeah, like last time. So we made a promise that we won't be here 3 hours. What we're going to do is, if you want to respond, it's going to be in 30 seconds if you disagree with your opponent. But I want to get some things out for the voters right now to give your stance. We will start with you, Mr. Gertler. And again, you can have a 30-second response. We'll want to stay to a minute. President of the United States currently sent a letter saying that the World Health Organization will not be receiving our $500 million a year or whatever it is. And we are pulling out. Do you support the president pulling out of the World Health Organization? And are there any others? I know that's in a minute, but are there any other world organizations you think our money could be better spent at home?
Yeah, I agree with Trump on pulling out of the WHO, absolutely. And also we should get out of the United Nations. You know, that's why I voted against that bill. I don't support the United Nations at all. We should get out of that. We should get out of the World Health Organization, stop spending our money. We should get out of foreign entanglements unless we are at war with them. And we should go to war constitutionally, that America First foreign policy that we talked about before. And so, and those are some of the organizations, of course, you could talk about reducing the size of government, you know, and getting rid of the IRS, Department of Education, DPD. Those are types of things we should be doing, and that's something I support.
What say you on that? Do you support the President of the United States sending a letter saying we're no longer going to be part of the World Health Organization until they make major changes? And what other world organizations do you think our money would be better spent at home?
I absolutely support the President. In fact, when I heard that, I let out a big cheer because I wanted the World Health Organization defunded from the United States. That agency has simply not been accountable for the money that it has, and I think it's unduly influenced by China and other countries that are not that don't do things in the best interest of the United States. So now, is the mission of the World Health Organization important? Yes, I think it is. It's like the mission of the CDC, you know, Center for Disease Control. That's also important. But they need to stick to their mission, is what needs to happen. And they're not sticking to their mission. And so when that happens, then the way you take care of that is you defund them. And so I fully support the President in defunding the World Health Organization. I think the UN also needs to be looked at to have some of its funding cut as well. I think that's appropriate. The UN has not been a friend of Israel, which is a great ally of the United States. The UN has not been a friend of the United States in many ways. In fact, we've pulled out of a number of treaties because of the...
Let's go in. Let me start with you this time. China, and we don't have time, but we have the Chinese virus. All right. We have the we have what we feel is maybe China. My words, cover up with the World Health Organization. What's going on with Hong Kong right now, where China is concerned, and what some people may not know is in the South China Sea, or the South Asian Sea, whichever one there, the Chinese have man-made built islands and are trying to claim territory that's not theirs. So in general, as a congressman, you're going to see stuff pertaining to China. What do we do in general? I know that's a lot, but I mean, what do you think as far as our relationship in China and what we have to do?
Well, I'm a 28-year Navy officer. I've got 3 combat tours in Iraq and Kuwait. And actually, my second deployment was on the USS Midway. And that deployment was in the Pacific Fleet, the Pacific Ocean, with the Pacific Fleet. And I actually went to Hong Kong before Hong Kong was turned over to the Chinese. And I know what a prosperous city it was. And it's a travesty what China is doing to Hong Kong. I also see that China is being aggressive across the world. We have a responsibility to help keep the international trade routes open, because that allows us to do international trade. We have the finest Navy in the world. We have the best military in the world, and I think we partner with other nations to keep those trade routes open. So I think there's area there to challenge China, and I think our president is doing that. I've seen reports of the U.S. Navy in greater presence over there, so I think that's the right thing.
What say you? Do I need to repeat that, or you?
No, it's okay. China's fast becoming a superpower, and they are becoming aggressive. I think that you look back what the founding fathers said. Trade with all, be wary of entangling alliances. To build our economy, we can continue to trade, but we also have to recognize that, and this what sets me apart in this campaign, is that America First foreign policy that Trump agrees with me on. We have military bases all around the world, over 700 of them, and it's unsustainable. If we continue to do this and spend billions and billions of dollars building an empire around the world, we not have a country left probably. Even in Afghanistan, we've spent over $50 billion there pretty much every year. And even the Afghan generals and the Afghan papers just came out last year said that there was no clear objective. And so getting back to that America First foreign policy that President Trump agrees with me on, I think it's the best thing we can do, so we can put America and Americans first. And I think that's the way to go. But, trade with all nations, stay out of entangling alliances, and that way we'll boost our economy.
All right, now let's move to this. We've had several spending packages, COVID-19, coronavirus. We have seen unemployment go from 3.5% into high double digits, an economic collapse of recession and depression levels, and we are coming back from that, but there's been several spending packages. There's one now on Speaker Pelosi's desk that's called the HEROES Act. It's another spending package. You're hearing that we need to renew unemployment benefits. You hear we have to. In that, there's a lot of bailout for states. There's a lot going on with that package. Do you think we should spend any more money or grow our way out of this? What say you if that came to the floor and it's Congressman Matt Gertler?
Yeah, as you know, I've always asked a series of questions and I tell the voters that always look at bills and say, is it constitutional and does it increase the size, the scope, or the intrusiveness of government? And so if it doesn't meet that high criteria, and of course if you can't read the bill, you vote no to it. So having those high standards would I would apply to all my bills. And when it comes to the the coronavirus and getting the economy back going, we've got to get back going. I don't think having over $26 trillion in debt is going to help us any. The greatest threat to our national security, as our founder said, is the public debt. And if we keep kicking the can down the road, it's going to affect not only my future, my children's future, and their children's future. And so we have to get people to D.C. to actually take hard stance and say, no, we're going to have to reevaluate things because this is unsustainable. Our government's going to become insolvent, and that's a threat to everybody and all our national security. So you need proven conservative fighters up in D.C. that are willing to and have able, and they've already taken those hard stands like I have. And I hope that I can earn the people's vote because my record is unparalleled.
What say you? Do I need to repeat that? There is a heroes package. It's called, but you know they always put those nice names on the top of those, and those big spending bills. But it's another multi-trillion-dollar spending bill. And what if they say, well, unemployment's running out, and we need to do this, that, but really underneath, the states are wanting bailed out. What say you about the next spending package?
Well, first off, I'm not in favor of government bailouts. I don't think government bailouts work. The states wanting bailouts are those primarily run by Democrats who don't know how to run their state to begin with and therefore are in debt and in looking for a source of money to bail themselves out from their failed policies. So I'm not in favor of bailing out states whatsoever. I think the states have been quite irresponsible. Now, the other thing is that in continuing the type of unemployment benefits that we have, which actually are paying people not to work, has been disastrous for small business. After one of our last debates, just going through seeing all the closed businesses was very disheartening. And so we need to get people back to work. You know, this pandemic, we need to put it behind us. And the economic engine of the United States is the greatest economic engine of the world, but right now it's been hurt, and it's been hurt because people are simply not working.
As Mr. Gertler said, President Trump's America First. Currently, what I see here, we have 800 military bases around the world. That's what it says here, 800 military bases in 70 different countries and territories around the world. Germany, we have, says here, 46,900. And we have these men and women stationed all over the world. Besides, where would you start? South Korea, Germany, Japan? Would you start bringing troops home? Would you start changing our presence around the world with our military?
Well, first off, what we have to keep in mind is we have to keep America safe. All right, America has to have borders, okay, to prevent illegal folks from coming in. But if we don't keep America safe from outside threats, then we get things like 9/11. So our military needs to be aware of what's going on around the world. So having a presence in other countries is very important to keep us safe here on the home front. You know, we have the finest military in the world, and that military is very capable of addressing threats to the homeland. And a perfect example is taking out the terrorist Soleimani. You know, we were there, we were able to do it, and that prevented another terrorist action against an embassy. You know, we have embassies in every country. We're going to have military everywhere we have an embassy.
Mr. Gertler, what say you concerning, do I need to repeat that?
No, I think I've got it. This is where we differ on this issue. I think to really honor the commitment of our military and our veterans, we should have an America First foreign policy, which Trump agrees with me on, and I was happy to see that he was withdrawing some troops from Germany. We've been there since or after World War II. So it's unsustainable to have this many bases, over 800 bases around the world. It's going to bankrupt us, and I believe that we're causing more enemies than we're making friends, 100% on that. And if we're going to go to war and the issues of war, and being a congressman, this is the most important responsibility as a congressman, is to vote on war. And we've abdicated that duty away to the executive for far too long. And we need a congressman that will go there and actually take the hard stands and actually get back to the Constitution, because these wars are endless. It's nation building. It's blood and treasure from our sons and daughters in the military. And the way to honor their commitment is to actually have an America First foreign policy, just like our president agrees with me on. So we bring them home, and if we brought them home and we shut down the bases and we would get them home, we would be way more safer than we are today.
Okay. The deferred, we'll go to you now, the deferred action for childhood arrivals. In the interest of time, we're running a little behind, but I don't want to stay too long, but I don't want to cut you off if you want to continue the conversation. Deferred action of childhood arrivals, known as DACA. The policy was an executive branch actual memorandum, was announced by President Barack Obama on June 15th, 2012. Okay, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services began accepting applications for the program on August 15th, 2012. Recently, President Donald Trump, we're going to be taking care of DACA, Trump said in a Rose Garden briefing this past Wednesday. I'm going to be signing immigration action, very big, merit-based immigration action. Now, do you have any kind of feeling what direction the president might be going? Would you agree with an amnesty for DACA? Now, for correction, we don't have time to go into it. There's different levels of DACA. Right now, you may have somebody that comes, a child that comes to this country, illegally now, but they're not eligible to sign up for DACA. So there's different ways. So the ones we're talking about tonight from 2012 that signed up, is there an amnesty plan that you would accept, Congressman Matt Gertler? What say you on immigration in general?
Well, I 100% agree with our president to build the wall, but I think there's also two things that are important to recognize, is that we want immigrants to come here, but legally. They have to be legal, first of all. I think that's very important, but we have to, first of all, get rid of the welfare state. It's massive, and there's a huge incentive there, but that is the product of bad policies and bad politicians putting through bad policies. Defunding sanctuary cities is a must. We have to do that. When it comes to DACA, it's certainly a complex issue, for sure. When I look at that, as Christians, it's hard to blame, the children of the sins of the mother and father. And I don't know what Trump's going to do, but I think that he will make the right decision on that. But I think that there's important things to do to actually build the wall, defund the sanctuary cities, and get rid of the welfare state, because that's a huge incentive to have illegal immigration in our country. But we've taken more immigrants than any in all the countries combined, and we like immigrants. This is the greatest country in the world, but it has to be a legal process, because the people that don't do it legally, they disrespect the entire process of the people that are trying to do it right.
So what would a Congressman Andrew Clyde say to amnesty for DACA if President Trump comes out? What kind of immigration plan do you think this country needs?
Well, I think everyone needs to come here legally. I think the DACA plan that President Obama put forward during his presidency was not legitimate. And I do not agree with the Supreme Court ruling that said that sent it back. I think if one president has the ability to create an executive order, another president has the ability to remove that executive order. And so for the Supreme Court to basically legislate from the bench, I think was wrong, because immigration is a legislative function. That is a function of the Congress, and the Congress needs to take that up and deal with that. I am not in favor of a path to citizenship for anyone who has come here illegally. I think that's wrong. My mother's an immigrant. She had to come here legally. She's been here. She was married to my father for 25 years, and she still had to go through the proper process and come here legally from Canada.
Republicans continue to say we have to have our border security and we have to have our immigration and border security first. In 1986, I think then President Ronald Reagan and then Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill made an amnesty deal, and the deal was, hey, we'll do the amnesty first and then secure the border, and it didn't work out that way. So are you firm on we have to secure our borders for any kind of deal to be done?
Say the question again?
Are you firm that we have to make the commitment to secure our borders?
Yes.
Before any kind of deal? In 1986, and I'm sorry for confusing, we did it backwards. We did the amnesty, and then the Democrats never came through with securing the border. Okay, that was part of the deal, right?
That's correct.
So
That's
what I'm asking is, as a congressman, would you be firm on saying, I'm not going to agree to this, we're going to get our border security first?
We need to have border security first, I believe.
And you?
You can't have a secure country without a secure border. So
Okay.
you absolutely have to have that wall, and that has to be built.
30 seconds. Omnibus spending bills. I'll go with you first. Omnibus spending bills. What would you do as a congressman to make appropriations stop pushing omnibus bills together, which all Republicans probably remember Paul Ryan all too well for? The last Republican speaker, that what would you do? Do you want appropriations voted on each and every one?
This is something I have experience in the state capitol, because I was so sick and tired of the omnibus bills, the budget bills that would come up every single year. I've consistently voted against them, and I've introduced legislation that has bipartisan support for House Bill 4, which would break down the budget by department. I would do the same thing as a congressman, so we can spend our time actually looking at the merits of each department and debating them openly, and that's what we have to do. Much like the Capitol in Atlanta, D.C. is very similar in that regard with the corruption. They put in all these departments, and they say you got to vote for it. You don't have to vote for it. People need to take the hard stands. That's what sets me apart, my proven conservative record of actually fighting and taking those hard stands. And so that's something that I'm passionate about as a fiscal conservative. I'll never vote for subsidies. I'll never vote for more debt. I'll never vote for tax increases. I never have, and I never will. And that's what sets me apart in this campaign ultimately. And the voters know that I'm tested and proven, so they can trust me if I get to D.C. that I'll do the right things. I've done it for 4 years.
What say you on omnibus spending bills? You okay with those, or would you rather appropriations be voted on one at a time?
No, I would much rather have appropriations voted on individually, and I would work very hard to make that happen. Because when appropriations are voted on individually, then you can cut bloated spending out of the appropriation. That's very difficult to do with an omnibus spending bill. So I think omnibus spending bills, I'm not in favor of omnibus spending bills at all. That's where you can hide pork and you can hide bloated spending. I believe in a balanced budget.
Instead of just saying defund law enforcement, we're hearing that all the time. What say you when you hear that in 30 seconds? And are there areas that the federal government could look at with law enforcement and make adjustments, just to say it that way? Or what say you when you hear defunding law enforcement?
I think defunding law enforcement is ridiculous. We need, who's going to enforce law and order if you defund law enforcement? And that's one of the reasons why my campaign is endorsed by 10 of the sheriffs here across the 9th Congressional District. They realize that I will back law enforcement, and so law enforcement is going to back Andrew Clyde for Congress.
What say you?
It's ridiculous that they're trying to defund our law enforcement. Absolutely. I think it's laughable that the left thinks this is okay. When they get in trouble, who are they going to call? I went to a Back to Blue rally with Congressman Doug Collins just like about a month ago when Atlanta was going crazy with the rioting and looting. We condemned that, and we called for a special prosecutor. I've also voted in favor of, I think it was Senate Bill 77, where it has harsher penalties for people to deface our statues in Georgia. That was last year. And so, it's ridiculous that they're going to try to think that this is okay, this destruction of private property and looting, and there's no repercussions. So we have to have rule of law. It's support our law enforcement 100%.
Our last one, and then we'll do our candidate questions so we can close. But we can't go without the last several months, Black Lives Matter, riots. There has been in areas peaceful protests, but Black Lives Matter, riots in our inner city. We see burning down buildings, death, so on, tearing down of monuments, just, one thing after another. The president has made a statement that he will send federal troops in. He will send the feds in. What say you about what's going on in our cities, many of them? And right now, Atlanta has happened the same thing with the burning of the Wendy's and some things going on. Do you see the president having the constitutional authority, Mr. Gutler, to go into some of these cities on some civil unrest?
I think using the military is the last resort for these types of things. It would have to be absolutely catastrophic. That's what's going on. I think the states should handle their business as much as possible, but there's a catastrophic event. Of course, the federal government might have to get involved in that. But it's absolutely egregious that we see what's happening with Black Lives Matter. There was an 8-year-old killed in Atlanta in front of that same Wendy's, and it's a travesty. And we have to really just look and try to have unity and, being Christians and seeing what's happening, pray for our country. So there is unity back. We also have to recognize that this is a product of the left, and I think what they're trying to do is drive out votes against President Trump by using violence, and they're misdirected right now by tearing and looting. And so our police need backup in this aspect so that they can enforce the law, and they're not afraid to enforce the law. What they tried to do to Officer Rolfe in Atlanta with the DA prosecuting him for defending himself is absolutely egregious as well. And so we need a special prosecutor for things like that. And so that's what I think about it on that issue. But you could talk about that for a long time.
Too well. Mr. Clyde, would you like to take that question?
Sure. I have the opinion that all lives matter. Okay. I think rioting is absolutely unacceptable. People certainly have the right to protest. That's within our Constitution, and I encourage peaceful protest. Redress of grievances is part of what makes America great. But bringing in the military to suppress a riot that a state could not handle would be through the Insurrection Act, and that would be a very last resort. The National Guard, as our Governor Brian Kemp brought into Atlanta, would be the appropriate method to handle something after the local government was overwhelmed. So I would certainly support our governor in that issue in bringing in the National Guard.
Okay, now it's time. Mr. Andrew Clyde, do you have a question for your opponent, Matt Gertler?
I do. Okay, Mr. Gertler, medical marijuana aside, do you believe we should have recreational marijuana?
Recreational. Well, this was certainly a bill that we got brought up. Well, not that bill, but we had brought up with CBD oil in the last few years, and we made great strides in that. And so I voted in favor of those bills, except for the in-state cultivation, where it was a crony capitalist bill that basically only had 6 producers. Now, when it comes to recreational, I think Georgia's not there, and that we're far from there, absolutely. But coming back to medical marijuana, that as well, this is between a doctor and his patients, and we've seen this great strides in Georgia happen because people need medicine, and that's what they wanted. And 10 years ago, this would not even happened. So I was happy to vote in favor of those bills. But it's definitely an issue I think will probably come up next session, but I'm not going to be there.
Okay. Mr. Gertler, do you have a question of Andrew Clyde?
Yeah, how can you justify being against the United Nations and say that publicly, but then just tonight you said that you would have voted in favor of the bill when it codifies language of the United Nations? How can you justify that?
I don't see that as codifying the
it supports it.
In support of the United Nations. That question doesn't make sense to me, Matt.
It's pretty clear. It supports the United Nations, but you say you're against it. And you're attacking me on the bill that you know why I voted against it. It's not against Trump. It's not against the troops. But you say you're against the United Nations. The reason I voted against the bill is because it codifies the language of the United Nations, which supports the United Nations. It's very simple. How can you justify that?
Go ahead and answer it.
Part of what the United Nations does is good. Part of what the United Nations does is not good. Right? They make some really bad decisions. But that resolution, I think, there was absolutely nothing wrong with that resolution whatsoever. And I think you were wrong to vote against it.
All right, that completes our debate, or I won't be able to keep my promise to you on the 3 hours. So that concludes our debate tonight. But now it's time for our closing statements by the candidates. Mr. Clyde, you have 2 minutes to close.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Jackson County and to Fetcher News for hosting this forum, and a special thank you out there to all of our first responders. My name is Andrew Clyde. I'm a Christian, I'm a combat veteran, and I'm a gun store owner. I'm proud to be endorsed by Georgia's lone Freedom Caucus member, Congressman Jody Hice, who has been in the trenches in the fight against big government. And when asked about my candidacy, he said, "Andrew has done more to deliver tangible results for the American people as a private citizen than most elected officials do during their time in office. I fought big government and won. So if you want a congressman who will defend the innocent unborn, who will protect our Second Amendment, and who has an A rating from the National Rifle Association, who will stand with our president to build a wall on the southern border, and who will stand with law enforcement to keep our community safe, then I humbly ask for your vote. I'm running to be your next congressman because I believe we need people in Washington who know how to fight and win against big government, and who will stand up for conservative values because they have those values deeply ingrained inside them. I fought terrorists in the deserts of Iraq in 3 combat tours. I defeated corrupt IRS bureaucrats in the courtroom, and I will take on socialist Democrats and the establishment in Washington, D.C. Again, I'm Andrew Clyde. Please go to Clyde4Congress, the number 4Congress.com to learn more about me. I ask for your prayers and I ask for your vote. Again, please vote Andrew Clyde for Congress, Soli Deo Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Matt Gertler, your 2-minute close.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Jackson County, for having us tonight. Now, my record is unmatched, and I have the most conservative voting record in the state. I've never voted for a tax increase, and I never will. I'm a grassroots campaign fueled by over 1,900 individuals, and we cannot thank you enough for all your support. Unlike my opponent, who is a self-funder and is trying to buy an election, we are not that way. He's also taken $3 million in government contracts, including from the IRS, which he does not want to acknowledge, which he says he's fighting against. And quote, saying that he puts his finances where his beliefs are, and donated to the former Democratic caucus chairman that has served on the leadership team of Stacey Abrams. Also, you say you're against the United Nations, but then you say that you would vote for a bill that codifies language with the United Nations. Now, President Trump needs proven conservative fighters in D.C. to help him fight for the establishment and these rhino Republicans and the socialist Democrats. That's why I was endorsed by Students for Trump. It's the largest student organizations for Trump in the United States. We must go on the offensive and fight for our conservative values and principles, or we're not going to have a country left. I am the most conservative candidate running in this race. My proven conservative record speaks for itself. It is unmatched, and it's what sets my campaign apart, and I will defend my principal voting record against my opponent's smear campaign. I'll be ready from day one to go work for the people of the 9th District, and I'll actually be the Republican that you can trust to do the right thing, to uphold the Constitution, to support law enforcement, our military, and our veterans, and putting America first foreign policy. I will always defend and fight for our founding principles like I've done at the State House if I'm elected to Congress, and I hope to earn your vote on August 11th. So thank you so much.
Folks, that's the end of our debate. We want to thank the Commerce Civic Center here, the Jackson County Republican Party, for being our sponsor. Appreciate everybody on the Jackson County Republican Party board for putting this together tonight and being our sponsor. I am your moderator, Brian K. Pritchard. I want to thank Destiny Riblet and Michael Malden for making it happen over there tonight for you at home. You've been watching FYNTV.com, and I'd like to remind you, Monday early voting starts. August 11th is Election Day for these 2 candidates. As I tell all candidates, we wish you well from FetcherNews.com, and we thank you for your willingness to serve. Good night.